Good morning, it is 7 o'clock and welcome to Mornings with Rich and Frost.
With Sophy and Wilfred, a very good morning from me as well. Lots to get to.
A Prime Minister under pressure. Keir Starmer is forced by his own MPs to release files about Lord Mandelson's appointment as US ambassador.
Change of approach on immigration from the White House as President Trump suggests there will be a softer touch by ICE agents after the fatal shooting of 2 US citizens in Minneapolis.
US TV host Savannah Guthrie makes an emotional plea for the return of her abducted mother, saying the family is ready to talk to whoever is holding the 84-year-old.
We'll speak to the actor and producer Theo James about his work with Syrian refugees who've now returned to their home country.
And it's the show that made Bill Murray, Tina Fey and Will Ferrell household names. And now Sky unveils its own lineup for the UK version of Saturday Night Live.
A very good morning to you. The Prime Minister is under intense pressure, his premiership hanging in the balance over the appointment of Peter Mandelson as US ambassador, despite knowing about his ongoing relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
So at PMQs yesterday, Keir Starmer conceded that the vetting process had made it clear Lord Mandelson continued his relationship with the convicted paedophile. And the government's now going to be forced to publish documents about the appointment after an angry revolt, driven really by his own MPs.
It's more than just embarrassing. It's shaping up to be the worst political scandal in British politics for perhaps a century. Our political editor, Beth Rigby, reports on a government and a Prime Minister reeling from the fallout.
I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it.
What on earth just happened? Well, what you saw there is a government in full-blown retreat. It might not have looked like it, but make no mistake, this was a humiliating defeat. Because not only do the government have to disclose all of the Mandelson files, but they don't get to decide which bits of it to hold back in the name of national security. They have to hand that decision over to the Parliament Intelligence and Security Committee. And who forced them to do that? Their own MPs.
There are well-worn filters through Parliament, through the Select Committee corridor, and there are various committees that could have locus in this space, to properly and sensitively handle information. I think there is consensus, Mr. Speaker, that everybody wants as much information as possible in the public domain so that we can get to the bottom of what has happened.
Now, that intervention, and all of it, I should say, was kicked off by none other than Angela Rayner earlier in the debate, only came about because Labour MPs don't trust their own government. They want independent oversight of the Mandelson files. And if that wasn't a low point, it gets even worse for Keir Starmer because the Met Police has now said that they don't want the government to release any evidence that might prejudice their investigation, the very evidence that Keir Starmer wants to release to prove to his MPs that he really was deeply misled by Mandelson. So that's another problem for Keir Starmer. The PM is in a serious bind because he needs to prove to his MPs that he was seriously misled. And I can tell you that his MPs are febrile, some of them feeling very, very compromised and wondering what they should do next. So this is a huge scandal. It's potentially the biggest political scandal of this century. How on earth did we get here?
Mandelson betrayed our country, our parliament and my party.
Over the weekend, it emerged that Peter Mandelson, when he was in government in 2009, leaked market-sensitive, top-secret government information to the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. And to give you a sense of how serious this is, Mandelson is now under criminal investigation for this, for misconduct in public office and leaking confidential government information. And if he's prosecuted and convicted, well, he could face jail time. So that is pretty enormous, and I don't need to tell you how bad it looks. But that isn't where it ends, because the scandal has come right to the door of the current Prime Minister. And that's because last year, Keir Starmer personally brought Peter Mandelson back into government as the ambassador in Washington for the UK. It was a massive job. And I don't need to tell you that the Prime Minister has now massively ruined the day he took that decision.
I regret appointing him. If I knew then what I know now, he would never have been anywhere near government.
The mood hardened even further against Starmer at Prime Minister's questions when he admitted that he knew about Mandelson's ongoing friendship with Epstein.
Can the Prime Minister tell us, did the official security vetting he received mention Mandelson's ongoing relationship with the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein?
So clear. Prime Minister.
Yes, it did.
Now, for some of his MPs, it is simply unforgivable that he reappointed Mandelson when he knew this information. Because the Prime Minister brought him back into the fold, it's now a very live political crisis at the heart of Starmer's government. Now, he will hope that the release of documents will relieve the pressure on him and prove what he's saying, that he was badly misled. But he cannot be sure of that. And for a Prime Minister in the predicament he's already in, that is a very, very dangerous place to be.
Beth there for us. Amanda's with us as well. Amanda, do we know when we start to see these documents?
Well, that's still very unclear because, of course, the Metropolitan Police are now saying that it could prejudice, their criminal investigation that they're carrying out at the moment, and so some of those documents might not be handed over. And now it is this parliamentary committee, the Intelligence and Security Committee, that have the responsibility to go through them and make a decision about what is appropriate to release and not. The government previously arguing that civil servants should do that because there could be risk to national security, or this kind of vaguer international diplomacy, which is what caused so much anger about MPs who believe that this is kind of tantamount to a cover-up. But clearly that is a process that's going to take time. And while yesterday at one point we did think that some of the papers were going to come out straight away, it now appears that's been delayed. And that in itself is a big problem for Sir Keir Starmer, because I think, as we heard him yesterday, his defence to all of this is, well, he lied to me as well, he betrayed me as well, I didn't know the extent of this relationship. Yes, I had been informed, he had to acknowledge that. It was public knowledge, really, anyway, that this relationship between Peter Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein had continued after his conviction. But he's sort of trying to rely on some of the papers to show that he himself is telling the truth in this situation. And until that can be released, well, there's all this doubt and speculation kind of fueling this ongoing lack of trust in the government and lack of faith in his own judgment from his own MPs.
I just want to try and get a bit of a sense about how dangerous the situation is now for the Prime Minister, because it feels to me that we are at a real danger point here. I mean, my phone kind of blowing up about it. I'm sure yours is as well, Amanda. And I guess it is partly because it comes at a time when an awful lot of MPs have already, I guess, kind of lost faith in Keir Starmer's leadership.
Absolutely. I mean, he's been on thin ice for a long time, hasn't he? And the question is this the scandal that really pushes him right over the edge? We know that MPs are really mutinous, but the question is, are any ministers or any senior figures prepared to openly come out and resign over this, to call for him to go? And I think that is the tipping point here. There is sort of talk about that off record at the moment, but no one kind of openly willing to go that far. The interesting thing, I think, is that this kind of rebellion yesterday in the Commons about which papers would be released and who would have responsibility for that was led by Angela Rayner, of course, who he sacked over her tax affairs, but she's always someone who's seen as a potential rival. Andy Burnham now not in the running, as he's not going to be an MP, whatever happens for the time being. But her kind of intervention there, she would say, well, she's kind of trying to reach a sensible compromise. And if the government had been defeated last night, well, that would be even worse. But I think that's really put her right at the forefront of this again as a potential challenger, because, of course, you need someone else. You can't just rebel without really having someone waiting in the wings. And I think that would be quite hard for Labour. The mathematics haven't really changed in that sense.
I think in the very short term, it would be kind of a bit of a surprise, also a little bit rich, if cabinet members started to trigger problems for the Prime Minister by resigning, because the cabinet was essentially all behind this decision. Maybe they disagreed privately, but different member each week has come out to publicly back him during his time there. So I think it seems unlikely that would be the short-term trigger. You mentioned Burnham there. I saw one tweet yesterday. I forget, there was so much flying around who did it, but saying, so he backed Mandelson and blocked Burnham. And I just think this by-election coming up, you know, only a few weeks away now, could be a really big pressure point. Obviously, I was going to say midterms, the locals are after that, but you know, and it's not going to help Labour's chances either in the upcoming by-election.
I think this is it. You know, the danger point that was already priced in for the May elections has just got an awful lot more dangerous for Keir Starmer. Manda, thank you very much indeed.
Now, back in November 2021, a dinghy overturned in the English Channel and at least 27 migrants lost their lives. Today, a final report into their deaths will be made public.
So it was the largest single loss of life since small boat crossings on the Channel began to be recorded in 2018. 27 bodies were found, but 31 people were believed to have died. And the inquiry just tries to establish the identities of those people and what lessons can be learned.
Katie Barnfield joins us now on this. Katie, thanks so much for joining us. So this is an inquest carried out by British authorities, of course. Talk us through what is expected.
Well, the Cranston inquiry will be publishing its final report this morning, and it will look into what lessons could be learned from that disaster and also what needs to change to try and stop a tragedy on that scale from ever happening again. It was the worst small boat disaster that's ever been recorded in the English Channel. At least 27 people lost their lives in the accident. 4 people have still never been found, and they died when the inflatable dinghy that they were travelling on, trying to get from France to England, partially sank, started taking on water in the Dover Strait, and that was in November 2021. It was about 4 hours into the journey that the boat started taking on water, and the occupants inside the boat made several distress calls to both the English and the French authorities, but by the time anyone came, it was far too late. Now, there was already an investigation into this disaster, into the UK's emergency response by the Marine Accident Investigation Branch, and that picked up on several issues like staffing issues at the Coast Guard, the lack of a dedicated surveillance aircraft, and also poor visibility at the time that made it extremely difficult, it said, to locate that boat. And there were also several small boat crossings happening that night, so there was then confusion, the accident investigators said, about which dinghy was actually in distress. They were only able to look, though, at the UK's emergency response. The investigators said they asked several times for information for the French authorities, but none was given. Now, Sir Ross Cranston, who's heading up this inquiry, said he will take that investigation into account when he publishes his findings, but he will also draw his own conclusions. And as I say, we'll be looking at what might need to change and making some recommendations in that regard. We will hear from him, and we will also get the final report from the inquiry a little bit later this morning, around 10:30.
Thank you very much indeed. Katie reporting there.
President Donald Trump is pulling hundreds of immigration agents out of Minneapolis after conceding they could use a softer touch. This is after 2 US citizens were shot and killed by ICE agents last month.
So 700 immigration agents are being removed from Minneapolis, although that does leave 2,000 agents who will still be there. And this all happened in an interview with NBC, President Trump defending the presence of ICE agents, but he did say the 2 deaths should not have happened.
I learned that maybe we can use a little bit of a softer touch, but you still have to be tough. These are criminals. We're dealing with really hard criminals. But look, I've called the people, I've called the governor, I've called the mayor, spoke to them, had great conversations with them, and then I see them ranting and raving out there, literally as though a call wasn't made. We've done a great job everywhere.
You mentioned Renee Good and Alex Peretti not being angels. Do you think any of that justified what happened to them, though?
No, I don't. It should have not happened. It was a very sad, to me, it was a very sad incident, 2 incidents. And, you know, they mentioned the one now, they don't mention the other. Well, I think they were both sad.
Now, the Winter Olympics is formally launching tonight with the opening ceremony in Milan. Mariah Carey is going to be singing, Snoop Dogg's going to be carrying a torch, but there is some controversy over the US decision to send immigration agents or ICE agents to the Games. Protesters already taking to the streets.
Well, the president of the International Olympic Committee, Kirsty Coventry, has called for sport to be a neutral ground. Our sports correspondent, Rob Harris, has this report for us from Milan.
These are the snowy scenes organisers want the Winter Olympics to be focused on. But more than 4 hours drive away from Cortina here in Milan, it could be a very different picture during these winter games because the geopolitical situation with anger against the United States is filtering in to the Olympics. And with ICE agents due here to protect the US delegation, it sparked protests here in Milan. Coming just weeks after agents from the Immigration and Customs Enforcement killed 2 US citizens protesting against ICE. They'll be here protecting Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio for the opening ceremony. And it's something I asked the IOC President, Kirsty Coventry, about. Would you see it as free speech and understand it if Americans were jeered in the opening ceremony, or do you have a message for them to be respected?
I hope that the opening ceremony is seen by everyone of an opportunity to be respectful towards each other, right? And so for me, I hope that the opening ceremony will be a reminder to everyone of how we could be, and that's what I think these games will also bring.
One of the expected stars of these games will be an American, Lindsey Vonn, competing at 41, despite tearing an ACL just a week ago at an event. But what about Team GB? Well, they're targeting potentially a record 8 medals at a Winter Olympics. The previous best was 5.
I'm really keen to kind of disrupt that natural order of the Winter Olympics and the kind of norm nations. But of course, like, winter sports comes down to so much jeopardy, and you get the wrong edge and that could be you out. Wrong side of the inch in a curling game, I know that firsthand, how difficult that can be.
It is already a celebratory atmosphere here in Milan. The torch is here for the final part of the relay before the cauldron is lit on Friday.
So this is what it looks like right now in Milan. 8 in the morning there, they're gearing up for the opening ceremony.
I hope there's a bit more snow wherever the skiing take place, which is in Cortina, I think.
Yeah, probably not in Milan, to be fair. Snoop Dogg, I have to say, this completely baffled me, right? Because I read this morning that Snoop Dogg's been appointed as the first ever honorary coach of Team USA, but Will's explained the background.
Yeah, so they're really embracing, because you know he went completely viral, his presence at the Paris Olympics, where he didn't have an official, I don't think, Olympics sporting role, but he was there as an ambassador ahead of the next Summer Olympics, which are in Los Angeles. And
what did he do?
He was just there at everything, and he went completely viral, super supportive. Everyone's sort of really, really into it, and so they found him an extra role at the winter ones, even though obviously initially this wasn't the plan. But so it's all building up to the LA Olympics.
He's not going to be coaching the skeleton, or, you know.
Maybe he is. We shouldn't be critical. Who knows?
Love it.
But I'm 100% there for it, and I think actually pretty much everyone is. He's like got this huge cult following off the back of it.
Great.
And I agree. Like, as one of the guests we've had on building up to this said, like, it's actually quite rare, we haven't had it for a while, where a Winter Olympics is on our time zone. And yeah, I'm there for it.
I'm excited as well,
yeah.
I have to say. I am excited. A very serious story to bring you next day, and we wanted to talk to you about the really tragic, worrying case that is gripping the US right now. TV anchor Savannah Guthrie and her family have released an emotional plea to anyone who might be holding their mother Nancy for ransom.
The 84-year-old was last seen on Saturday evening at her home in Arizona. Here is Savannah sitting alongside her 2 siblings.
Our mom is our heart and our home. She is 84 years old. Her health, her heart is fragile. We too have heard the reports about a ransom letter in the media. As a family, we are doing everything that we can. We are ready to talk. However, we live in a world where voices and images are easily manipulated. We need to know, without a doubt, that she is alive and that you have her. We want to hear from you, and we are ready to listen.
It's incredibly hard to watch and to imagine what they're going through. Well, Nancy's family and friends held a candlelit church service in Tucson, Arizona, in the hope of her safe return. Officials say there were signs of forced entry at her home, and the local sheriff said he does not believe she left willingly. Martha Kellner has more for us.
Savannah Guthrie is a professional communicator. She's been one of America's most successful TV presenters for years and years now, but this was an entirely different public address, and the events of the last few days, the disappearance, kidnapping of her 84-year-old mother, Nancy, have clearly taken their toll on the entire Guthrie family. Savannah Guthrie speaking publicly for the first time, flanked by her brother Cameron and her sister Annie, who also spoke. Her voice breaking at times, particularly as she addressed her mother directly. She said, "Mummy, if you are hearing this, you're a strong woman. You are God's precious daughter." She also addressed the people or persons believed to be the kidnappers of her mother. She said, yes, we're ready to talk, but we need proof of life. She also addressed her mother's health issues. She's known to have heart problems, wears a pacemaker, and she said she lives in constant pain, that she needs medication in order to survive, and that she needs that medication in order not to suffer, because it has now been 4 days since her disappearance, either in the late hours of Saturday evening or the early hours of Sunday morning. Police spent several hours on Wednesday searching around and inside Nancy Guthrie's home. They went in the wooded area around the back of the home. They also searched her garage. So this search seems to be intensifying. The President is also now in contact with Savannah Guthrie. He says he's spoken to her and assured her that federal and local law enforcement are at the family's disposal immediately. So the search for Nancy Guthrie goes on, but certainly the Guthrie family seem to be approaching these ransom notes as though they are legitimate.
Martha Cunner there for us. Now, Saturday Night Live, SNL. It's been a TV institution in the US for half a century, and we're getting a British version launching on Sky next month. It's kick-started careers of some of the biggest names in American comedy: Bill Murray, Tina Fey, Eddie Murphy, Will Ferrell, and many more. And now the UK cast has been announced.
Quite exciting. Let's bring in our correspondent, Graham Stottard, for us. I guess the whole point is these guys are not well known at the beginning, but they become stars. Is that the idea?
Absolutely, and you just rattled off a few there. I mean, I could name a few more. Will Ferrell, Amy Poehler, Mike Myers, better known as Austin Powers, of course, and it's really just kicking off, as you say, next month. It's going to be aired live. It's going to be starting with 6 episodes from March the 21st. Pete Davidson is one of the more recent stars to have come out of the US version. He was ambushed about it, actually, in an interview a couple of months back, but here's what he had to say about it.
I think it's a smart idea to have SNL over there because it's not that it's a different brand of comedy, but it is a little bit. But a lot of the biggest stuff that's in the States is stuff that we stole from you guys, like The Office or literally anything Ricky Gervais does. And
he's so funny.
There's just tons of great comedy over there.
Yeah, very flattering to us. Humble Brits, of course, but like the US version, I know. But Ricky Gervais, Jimmy Carr, he went on to mention as well. But it'll be written and rehearsed in the week leading up to the live show, performed in front of a live audience. The producers say, of course, it's going to be very topical. It's going to have sketch shows. It's going to have live music. And as you say, it's going to feature comedians who are fledgling. They are up and coming. There are 11 in total. You may have heard of some of them, though. You have Anya Magliano, Emma Siddy. They were on Taskmaster. You have Black Ops star Hamed Animashon as well. But the point of the show is that these are people who may grow into Tina Fey, not physically, literally, of course, but with the reputations of Tina Fey, of Will Ferrell. And it is, of course, sometimes controversial. You'll remember recently Jimmy Fallon, who started his career there as well, got in a bit of hot water with Donald Trump. It often lampoons famous people, politicians. So there might be some people over here who aren't quite so excited about its arrival.
I think I can't wait. I mean, the live aspect can't be understated as well. I think everyone in America knows it's one of those last bastions. You tune in for this great performance and it's happening live. I think that keeps people focused. But as you said, it's about holding the powerful to account through comedy, which is often much more effective. So looking forward to that in March. Great stuff. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Now, the government is out and about on the south coast today, in St Leonard's, to be specific. They're trying to talk about high streets, they're trying to talk about pride in the community. But look, genuinely, it is one of those days where the future of the government, I think it's fair to say, does hang somewhat in the balance. The fury over Peter Mandelson's appointment continues. We're joined now by the Housing, Communities and Local Government Secretary, Steve Reid, who joins us now. Thanks for being with us. Look, I'm just going to kick off straight on Peter Mandelson. Keir Starmer appointed him to be US Ambassador when he knew he had an ongoing relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He knew Peter Mandelson stayed in Epstein's kind of swanky New York townhouse after his conviction for child prostitution offences, child rape offences, let's be honest, because minors can't consent. I mean, this is just not OK in any way, is it?
Well, I mean, first of all, I share everyone's fury and outrage at what Peter Mandelson had been up to. We now know, because of the Epstein files being released in the United States of America, the extent of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, what he'd been up to, but also we now know the extent to which he had lied to the Prime Minister, the vetting process, the Prime Minister's team, ahead of that appointment being made. And of course, in the light of the information that now has come out, the Prime Minister deeply regrets ever having made that appointment. But he made it at the time because he didn't know these things. He knew that Peter Mandelson had been the EU Trade Commissioner and the UK Business Secretary. But had he known...
I'm just going to come in because, look, I accept that an awful lot of stuff has come out that Keir Starmer did not know at the time. But the two things that I mentioned, the government did know at the time. And I guess my frustration is, how can this government say you take violence against women and girls seriously when you appoint someone to this job knowing it? We talk about a paedophile ring. The way that women and girls are talked about in that email, frankly, makes me feel sick. And I know the main culprits are Epstein and the people he associated with. But, association matters too. Being friends with someone after they are convicted of child sex offences matters. And it should matter to this government, shouldn't it? You knew enough.
Of course it matters. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach, Sophie, when I found out what Mandelson had been up to, just as I know that you did and so many other people will have done as well. But there's 2 points here. First of all, the extent to which Peter Mandelson lied to cover up the extent and the depth of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, you won't have to just take my word for that, because the government is going to publish all the documentation involved in the vetting and appointment process, subject to the Intelligence and Security Committee checking.
Do you have a timeline on that, just very briefly? Is there a timeline on that publication?
Well, it will be in the hands of the committee, of course, and there's a police investigation quite rightly going into what Mandelson was doing in betraying confidential documents and information that he was given as a member of the cabinet at the time. It's quite right, that should go ahead, and quite right, it shouldn't be prejudiced. But subject to that, everything is going to be released, and in time, people will see all of it. Secondly, you mentioned violence against women and girls. That was one of the top 5 issues that we campaigned on in the general election. And we're taking action on that. We're putting a rape team in every police force. We're putting a domestic abuse team in every 999 team. We've banned spiking. We're working with schools to protect kids from the dangerous content that you find on the internet. We're looking at what the Spanish are doing with the algorithms to try and stop that content getting around. The Prime Minister stood up and took action against Grok because of the sexualised images of women and children. So yes, we take that seriously, but at the same time, we recognise absolutely how distressing, how angry we all feel about what Peter Mandelson has been up to.
Can I ask you about Morgan McSweeney? So this is the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, close to Mandelson. I think it's fair to say he kind of helped push through the appointment. He backed him. And you know Morgan McSweeney really pretty well. You go way back. You worked in Lambeth together. You worked for Labour together. So I'm really interested in what you say to this question. Is Morgan McSweeney safe in his job, and should he be safe in his job?
All that's happened here, it's dreadful what has happened here, but Peter Mandelson lied not only to the Prime Minister, he lied to the Prime Minister's entire team. He's betrayed the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, he's betrayed 2 Prime Ministers, and he's betrayed the country.
So has he betrayed Morgan McSweeney? Is that what you're saying?
He lied to everybody. And now what people need to see the extent to which he lied, and that will happen as these documents are released, so people can see
Can you answer the question?
deception.
Is Morgan McSweeney safe in his job?
Yes, of course he is. The problem when someone lies isn't that they lie to you, because there can be liars in any walk of life. It's what happens when you find out you've been lied to. And what the Prime Minister did months ago was contact Peter Mandelson at 5 a.m. in the morning and sack him on the spot from his job as US ambassador. That was absolutely decisive action.
It's a massive misjudgment from Morgan McSweeney, at least, isn't it?
The person at fault here is not the Prime Minister or his team. It is Peter Mandelson who lied, manipulated and deceived everybody, including the media, actually, because he made plenty of... He was on the media an awful lot as well. You know, he conned everybody. Yeah. What matters is what you do when you find out what's gone wrong. And the Prime Minister couldn't have been more decisive. He sacked Peter Mandelson at 5 a.m. in the morning as US ambassador months ago.
Look, to be honest, I take your point about the media. Just want to say that, you know, for the record. We are at a point of real danger for Keir Starmer's leadership. I've heard loads of Labour MPs, Labour ministers talking about it. I'm sure you must do as well. What's your message for the Labour MPs, for the ministers? Because there are many of them who might be thinking, look, Keir Starmer's done. It's time to change.
We're all reeling because of what Peter Mandelson has done. I would judge the Prime Minister not by the fact that Peter Mandelson lied to him, but by what he did when he found out, and he couldn't have been more decisive. He took out Peter Mandelson.
He knew some stuff before. I don't want to keep going on to it, but like he did know. He did know some stuff before, right?
Well, he didn't, because Peter Mandelson lied, and the extent of that lying...
Well, I spoke to Lord Glassman, for example, who said that he went to Number 10 and warned you about about Peter Mandelson, and Number 10 basically told him to, you know, shut up and go away. So that you know, Gordon Brown warned him. You know, I don't think it's... Look, you know, I'm not saying he knew everything, but he knew enough.
Oh, you know, I wish people could tell when liars are lying. Unfortunately, we can't. But when the truth came out, the Prime Minister acted. And he didn't just act yesterday when the further revelations came out. He acted months ago and took me to Peter Mandelson out.
As we end, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about why you are in St Leonard's today. It's difficult, obviously, I know, for ministers who are out trying to drum up policy announcements, but you're talking about high streets, you're talking about pride in Britain, right?
Yeah, and thank you for that, Sophie. I mean, it is frustrating when, you know, horrific things like what Mandelson's been up to obliterate what the government's trying to do that is good for this country. But I'm here in Sussex today to talk about the fact that we've got an additional 40 places added to the 250 we'd already announced, but we'll be getting up to £20 million each to invest in improving areas that have been the most held back in the country. The first wave of areas, that we call them Pride in Place areas, the first wave of areas getting this money, 80% of them have decided to spend the money on improving their high streets. Because the state of your high street, if it looks run down and boarded up and full of graffiti and litter, a place you used to go and meet friends in cafes now dead and boarded up, it tells you something very profound about the place that you care about the most. So we're giving people the funding and the powers they need to put pride back into their high streets up and down this country. That is real change that the government's making for people.
OK, Steve Reid, always good to have you on the programme. Thanks very much for...
Thank you, Steve.
I don't usually dwell too much on these immediately, but essentially the gist of his argument was there. All that's happened here is a liar's lied. I mean, good luck with that framing in the days and weeks ahead if you think it's going to be enough.
And Morgan McSweeney, Steve Reid saying they're safe in his job, PM's Chief of Staff.
Now, we mentioned their journalists on this story. After the break, we're going to be talking to the FT's Jim Pickard. Famously, a year ago, almost to the day, in an interview, they pressed him, Peter Mandelson, very hard on his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and Peter Mandelson told the FT to F off. We'll talk to Jim Pickard from the FT next.
best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us?
Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office.
Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
Welcome back. Let's get more now on the Epstein scandal. The Prime Minister's accused Peter Mandelson of lying repeatedly about his relationship with the convicted paedophile.
Now, in February 2025, almost exactly a year ago to the day, Peter Mandelson was asked by the Financial Times about his relationship with the deceased sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. And famously, he told them, I'm not going to go into that, and then he told them to F off. It was an FT obsession, according to him.
Yeah, we can't say exactly what he said. I mean, it was almost sad it was in print, because it would be great to have a video of it. But anyway, Deputy Political Editor of the Financial Times, Jim Pickard, joins us now. Jim, great to have you with us. I guess that interview, those questions then, with hindsight, look more legitimate than ever. Can you take us inside the room? I know your colleague did it. What was the tone, do you think, a year or so ago?
I mean, the way that George Parker, our political editor, described that interview was that everything was very kind of smooth and charming in the way that Peter Mandelson often can be. And then when he asked about my reporting on Peter Mandelson's friendship and links with Jeffrey Epstein, in particular, a story we did in 2023, where we revealed that Mandelson had literally stayed in Epstein's mansion in New York in 2009, while Epstein was still in jail for soliciting prostitution from a 14-year-old. And George Parker asked Mandelson about this, and the way he described it in the piece is that the temperature suddenly dropped and became very icy, and it was very clear that Peter Mandelson wants to move on. But I always found it very strange that we did a 2,000-word article about that story based on emails leaked from an internal JP Morgan report, and the rest of Fleet Street didn't seem very bothered by it. And Peter Mandelson continued to do all these big interviews on Sunday shows and that kind of thing, where he just wasn't really asked about it. I can't think of one occasion. And I would often be sitting there shouting at the TV saying, please, Laura, or whoever it is, can you just ask him this one question? And it never really happened. The other angle on this is that I was approached in September last year with somebody who had seen evidence of a financial trail between Jeffrey Epstein and Ronaldo Avila da Silva, who is, of course, Peter Mandelson's husband. And I tried very hard to stand that up with my colleague Peter Foster, and we were met with a wall of denial from around the former ambassador, sort of vaguely threatened with legal action. But when the DOJ files finally came out on Friday, we were poised with various search facilities to look for the name Ronaldo Avila da Silva. And so on Friday night, we broke the story that he'd received multiple payments of thousands of pounds from Epstein. And then again on Saturday night, we revealed the $75,000 straight to Mandelson in 2003 and 2004 from Epstein. So are we a bit obsessed? I mean, I think I probably am sounding obsessed, yes.
Jim, I just want to pick up on something you said there, which, you know, is difficult for us all in the media to really kind of confront. But you were saying how the FT, rightly, has been fearlessly investigating this story for some years. But you found, I guess, a reluctance perhaps in other parts of the media to really confront it in the same way. And I just wonder, you know, you've been in Westminster a long time, I have as well. Does this speak to something in Westminster about the relationship, I guess, that politicians can have with journalists? And is it a problem?
I mean, look, we've all been there when one of our political contacts, whether it's an MP or a Lord or a minister or someone else, finds themselves in a scandalous situation. And if they've helped you in the past, it is quite difficult to confront them or help bring them down or whatever it is. So maybe, you know, I made it sound there like I'm immune from that phenomenon. But I think for a lot of the media, particularly the broadcast media, Peter Mandelson was such good copy and such a brilliant communicator with really fascinating insights into geopolitics and into domestic politics. He was almost too valuable for a lot of journalists to want to harm him. I mean, you saw a couple of days ago, the Times ran this really long piece, which had obviously been designed to be like a rehabilitation interview with him. He did an interview with Laura Kuenssberg of the BBC first, then there was something on Newsnight. This looked like a sort of deliberate attempt to resuscitate himself. And I think they probably should have pulled that interview because it just looked far too cozy. And it came out literally on the day where the police said that they were going to investigate Mandelson over a potential crime that carries a potential life sentence. Obviously, Mandelson denies any wrongdoing, etc. Your original question, I just wanted to go back to, which was, when did I raise this with Keir Starmer? Now, interestingly, this is what Kemi Badenoch raised in PMQs yesterday, which is that at the start of 2024, there was this quite boring press conference at a factory in Bristol. It was to do Keir Starmer's New Year message. And I had one question. I used it to ask Keir Starmer, Lord Mandelson, you know, the FT's reported that he stayed at Jeffrey Epstein's mansion while the disgraced paedophile was in jail. Does Mandelson have questions to answer? And I think that was the opportunity where Keir Starmer could have said, that sounds quite bad, I'm going to go and look into it. And instead, he gave me a very dismissive response where he basically said, you know more about it than I do. And then a few months later, he went on to appoint him ambassador. And you can see why Badenoch, the leader of the Conservatives, would want to raise that at PMQs yesterday, because it's very visible evidence that he did know about this, whether or not he subsequently forgot it.
Jim, I just had a question. You know, obviously, you're the deputy political editor at the Financial Times. Stepping back from all of it, as you said, you know, there's an ongoing investigation. Nothing has been proven at this point. But the sorts of business and financial dealings that are implied by what has come out in the last week, how big are they? How bad are they?
So if you mean the leaking of information from within government, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think this story has two elements, which is that, you know, I don't think it's always that awful if a minister leaks information to the press or because they think that the world needs to know. I don't think we should be sort of condemning or leaking of all kinds. But I think the thing about this one is that if you consider, A, he'd been paid by Jeffrey Epstein, you know, he literally received $75,000 direct, which he claims not to remember. And then he goes on to leak this really useful information from the top of government during financial crisis. I think those are the two things together which makes this such a story of potential corruption. I think the first shoe to drop was on Sunday, where, with the help of Dan Needle, tax expert, the FT, we broke a story about how, in his communications with Epstein, Peter Mandelson was encouraging the head of JP Morgan to threaten Alistair Darling, the then Chancellor, over his bank bonus tax, which was absolutely extraordinary. And then on Monday, Dan Needle revealed a couple of documents about, you know, suggesting more information being leaked. The one we found on Monday was this memo inside Downing Street, which was talking about potential asset sales of £20 billion. It was talking about tax changes. You know, and he leaked this stuff directly to Epstein subsequently. And then Tuesday, there's this...
Honestly, the evidence is, I have to say, I'll be honest, me and Wilf could talk to you about this all day, and we'd love to get you on again, because it is just the most extraordinary scandal, and it's like a cobweb of different associations and different angles, and it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. But we are out of time, so it's been great to have you on. Thank you.
Jim Pickard there from the FT. Now, we all know online scams are on the rise. You might have been a victim of one or know someone that has been. And coming up, we've got a pretty crazy report from our reporter who's gone undercover in a scam that's been operating from Cambodia, where fraudsters have been impersonating a legitimate US company to try and steal victims' money.
Now, there's a bit of a backdrop to this. In recent weeks, the Cambodian government's launched a crackdown on cyber fraud. They've been targeting some of these scam centres. But for years, they have been accused of almost being complicit in the multi-billion-dollar industry. Well, we can look now at our report from Cambodia. This is our Asia correspondent, Cordelia Lynch.
We've been undercover in a scam centre in Cambodia.
Do you think that will be what?
A multi-billion-dollar industry built on human trafficking and forced labour. The Cambodian government, accused of enabling it, is now cracking down. But we found scams still operating in Sihanoukville, a major hub for cyber fraud. On the Telegram messaging app, we pose as wannabe scammers. In just minutes, we're invited for an interview. On the 31st floor of a busy building in room 115, we're told to read a script impersonating a legitimate US company.
I'm reaching out on behalf of K-Force. I'm contacting you to recommend a remote job opportunity. May I ask you if you are over 25 years old? The customer replies yes.
And the police, they say, will tip them off before any raid.
I got the stuff too, right? Yeah, there's nothing to worry about it. Because if there is anything to happen, they're going to tell us beforehand and then 2 or 3.
The police will give us a warning.
Yes. So you guys don't have to worry about that.
Okay, so everyone will be safe?
Yes.
Okay.
The real K-Force, based in America, confirmed this call centre has no connection to them, and they take fraud and the misuse of their name extremely seriously. The Cambodian government has asked Sky News for the location of the scam building so they can investigate. Many scam workers are trafficked, some tortured. Athena, who was recently freed, is from Indonesia.
When we are work normally, the bosses just walk and playing with the electric shock around us.
Electric shock?
Yeah. And they can punch you with a chair also. It's an iron chair.
Cambodian police have raided many scam centres. This is the abandoned Brother compound in Phnom Penh.
Just look, rows and rows of desks with plugs. We've seen discarded computers elsewhere. And look over here, you've got pockets for the mobile phones which were confiscated by the scam bosses because they wanted their workers focusing.
This board has tips on how to emotionally manipulate victims. Bonuses are promised alongside punishments. And there's CCTV cameras everywhere. In a statement to Sky News, Cambodia's Minister of Information said the royal government of Cambodia rejects claims that it's failing trafficking victims or tolerating abuse linked to scam compounds. Authorities have dismantled criminal networks nationwide, rescued foreign nationals and coordinated repatriations. But the government has also been accused of profiting from scams and turning a blind eye to slavery and trafficking. The big question is just how far it's really willing to go to crush such a colossal industry. Cordelia Lynch, Sky News, Cambodia.
Cordy, I'm delighted to say, joins us now. Cordy, great to see you. I mean, it's crazy to see the reach, the network, the sprawling nature of all of this. Is there any kind of ideas about how it can be ended, or is that just too complicated?
Good morning to you, Wilf. It is hugely complicated, and it's going to take far more than just one country. I mean, it's mind-boggling just how vast this industry is. You know, it generates at least $12.5 billion annually in Cambodia alone. And there is a lot of skepticism about how much the government really wants to turn its back on scamming. What I would say at the moment is they are under a lot of diplomatic pressure from America, where there's been a lot of financial victims, and from China too, because you have these Chinese mafia bosses running the scam centers. They are recruiting Chinese nationals to work for them, and they are then targeting Chinese people back home through these scams as well. So they are really pushing hard on Cambodia to do more. And you've also got a lot of their Southeast Asian neighbours as well, who have seen their nationals targeted, some tortured, some even killed in these scam compounds. So there is a huge kind of swell of pressure there, but it is difficult. And we've seen estimates from the United Nations of somewhere between 100 and 150,000 people trafficked to Cambodia alone since the pandemic. So that gives you a sense of how many there are that they need to try and tackle. Now, it is true, in this latest crackdown, we have seen thousands of people arrested, hundreds deported. It's important also to reflect on what some human rights groups have called a humanitarian crisis currently within Cambodia, because you've got all these people that have either escaped or been freed from these compounds, and they're lining up outside the embassies, but most of them don't have passports, money or visas, and they're desperately trying to get back home. You're hearing some pretty horrific stories of violence that they've endured. And so they're sort of living in limbo, waiting to see if their respective countries will allow them to get back. Some, of course, will be prosecuted as well. So it's a very challenging dynamic. And look, scams aren't going away. I think what we've seen with the scam operations is that they move swiftly, they reinvent themselves, they shift to other countries. They're very nimble, and that, for all police forces, is a really difficult thing to try and crush.
Cordy, great stuff. Thanks so much. Great to see you, and more on Cordy's exclusive and very important reporting there from Cambodia on the Sky News website.
And now coming up, we're going to be talking about the Washington Post, which has laid off hundreds of employees, approximately a third of its workforce. It's owned, it should be said, by the Amazon boss, Jeff Bezos.
I'm James Matthews, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C. Do you fear a fourth indictment? Does your government owe an apology to the British home children?
Great to see you.
Does your government owe them an apology? The fact that they were intercepted, does that indicate a military weakness on the part of Iran?
No, no, no.
Free, wherever you get your news. There's no doubting the strength of this hurricane as it roars through. You can feel a devastating power. It had been a difficult night in a deadly storm.
Bang, bang. You can hear it hitting the windows.
Our houses are okay.
It's depressing.
As bad as all of this is, it could have been much worse. Today, this land they call sacred is at the heart of America's electric car revolution.
To me, it's a sacred ground.
The white gold rush is a race that Biden doesn't want to lose. I've covered some of the biggest stories in the world. Donald Trump, 45th President of the United States, it would appear is about to learn his fate.
Escort coming out!
San Quentin houses America's largest death row. They rarely allow cameras onto the condemned block.
James Matthews, Sky News. I want to be treated equally like everyone else.
It's one step closer to getting out, to getting off death row.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Mr. Trump, James Matthews from Sky News.
Hey, James.
You're diminished by claims that you're a racist.
Question?
Mr. Musk, has your ignorance and ego cost Ukrainian lives? Vladimir Putin calls you outstanding. What do you call him, sir?
He's from Sky News. He's from Sky News. He's entitled to ask me questions.
There are dozens of people desperately clambering to get onto that boat. It is a chaotic scene, but it's being watched by dozens of French police officers on the beach. My biggest challenge was covering migration across Europe, at land and sea, and meeting desperate people who said they would do anything to get to another country. Adam Parsons, Sky News.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist. A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
We just want to leave you with a really important story, a story that's pretty depressing, to be honest, if you care about journalism. The Washington Post laying off hundreds of employees, approximately a third of its workforce.
We're tight on time at the end of the show, so we can talk about this more later, but it's kind of the headline part of it. Jeff Bezos, of course, hugely wealthy founder of Amazon, is the owner of it and 10 years ago bought it to say he would protect it. So there's more details on this to cover in the later hours, but we're going to have to take a break, and we'll be back with all the day's top stories in a few minutes.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
A very good morning to you. It's 8 o'clock. Welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
Sophy and Wilf, good morning from me as well. An awful lot of politics to get to.
A Prime Minister under pressure, Sir Keir Starmer, forced by his own MPs to release files about Lord Mandelson's appointment as US Ambassador.
A change of approach on immigration from the White House as President Trump suggests there will be a softer touch by ICE agents after the shooting of 2 US citizens in Minneapolis.
US TV host Savannah Guthrie makes an emotional plea for the return of her abducted mother, saying the family is ready to talk to whoever is holding the 84-year-old.
We're also going to be speaking to the actor and producer Theo James about his work with Syrian refugees who have now returned to their home country.
And a record-breaking success. Will be joined by some of the first all-female crew to sail around the world without stopping.
Good morning. Great to have you with us. The Prime Minister is under intense pressure. His premiership really hanging in the balance over the appointment of Peter Mandelson as US ambassador, despite knowing about his ongoing relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
At Prime Minister's questions yesterday, Sir Keir Starmer conceded that the vetting process had made clear that Lord Mandelson had continued his relationship with the convicted paedophile. The government will now be forced to publish documents about the appointment after an angry revolt from his own Labour MPs.
And look, this is more than embarrassing. It is shaping up to be one of the worst political scandals in recent memory. Our political editor, Beth Rigby, reports on a government and a Prime Minister reeling from the fallout.
I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it.
What on earth just happened? Well, what you saw there is a government in full-blown retreat. It might not have looked like it, but make no mistake, this was a humiliating defeat, because not only do the government have to disclose all of the Mandelson files, but they don't get to decide which bits of it to hold back in the name of national security. They have to hand that decision over to the Parliament Intelligence and Security Committee. And who forced them to do that? Their own MPs.
There are well-worn filters through Parliament, through the Select Committee corridor, and there are various committees that could have locus in this space, to properly and sensitively handle information. I think there is consensus, Mr. Speaker, that everybody wants as much information as possible in the public domain so that we can get to the bottom of what has happened.
Now, that intervention, and all of it, I should say, was kicked off by none other than Angela Rayner earlier in the debate, only came about because Labour MPs don't trust their own government. They want independent oversight of the Mandelson files. And if that wasn't a low point, it gets even worse for Keir Starmer, because the Met Police has now said that they don't want the government to release any evidence that might prejudice their investigation, the very evidence that Keir Starmer wants to release to prove to his MPs that he really was deeply misled by Mandelson. So that's another problem for Keir Starmer. The PM is in a serious bind because he needs to prove to his MPs that he was seriously misled. And I can tell you that his MPs are febrile, some of them feeling very, very compromised and wondering what they should do next. So this is a huge scandal. It's potentially the biggest political scandal of this century. How on earth did we get here?
Mandelson betrayed our country, our parliament and my party.
Over the weekend, it emerged that Peter Mandelson, when he was in government in 2009, leaked market-sensitive, top-secret government information to the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. And to give you a sense of how serious this is, Mandelson is now under criminal investigation for this, for misconduct in public office and leaking confidential government information. And if he's prosecuted and convicted, well, he could face jail time. So that is pretty enormous, and I don't need to tell you how bad it looks. But that isn't where it ends, because the scandal has come right to the door of the current Prime Minister. And that's because last year, Keir Starmer personally brought Peter Mandelson back into government as the ambassador in Washington for the UK. It was a massive job, and I don't need to tell you that the Prime Minister has now massively ruined the day he took that decision.
I regret appointing him. If I knew then what I know now, he would never have been anywhere near government.
The mood hardened even further against Starmer at Prime Minister's questions when he admitted that he knew about Mandelson's ongoing friendship with Epstein.
Can the Prime Minister tell us, did the official security vetting he received mention Mandelson's ongoing relationship with the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein?
So clear. Prime Minister.
Yes, it did.
Now, for some of his MPs, it is simply unforgivable that he reappointed Mandelson when he knew this information. Because the Prime Minister brought him back into the fold, it's now a very live political crisis at the heart of Starmer's government. Now, he will hope that the release of documents will relieve the pressure on him and prove what he's saying, that he was badly misled. But he cannot be sure of that. And for a Prime Minister in the predicament he's already in, that is a very, very dangerous place to be.
Well, Amanda joins us now to discuss this. Amanda, how much trouble is Keir Starmer in?
Well, he was already on pretty thin ice with his MPs, wasn't he? I mean, I think there is a real risk that this could be the scandal that tips him over the edge, as it were. We can see how angry all the backbenchers are about this, just by the revolt that we saw yesterday about the government's plan to have such tight control over the release of the documents connected to this. But fundamentally, it's not easy to unseat a Labour leader. There's been a lot of muttering about it, but we'd probably need to see some big high-profile names, ministerial resignations. There is some chatter about that, but I think we'd need to see people really putting their head over the parapet in order to do that.
Maybe Morgan McSweeney is the person they're perhaps targeting as a kind of lower-hanging fruit, I guess.
Yes, a bit of a sacrifice to kind of show that they are listening, I guess. So Morgan McSweeney is the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, his right-hand man, really, in Downing Street, and he's sort of the man credited with orchestrating that election victory, you know, less than 2 years ago now. He's not popular with the left and the party, he's quite a centrist, and also he's very close to Peter Mandelson. He's been described as his protégé. He's someone who's known to have really pushed for his appointment as the US ambassador. So there is a lot of anger among MPs about his role in it. But you were asking Steve Reid about this earlier, and he was really pretty firm in his defence of him, insisting, well, he'd been lied to like everyone else. Let's have a listen.
All that's happened here, it's dreadful what has happened here, but Peter Mandelson lied not only to the Prime Minister, he lied to the Prime Minister's entire team. He's betrayed the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, he's betrayed 2 Prime Ministers, and he's betrayed the country.
So
now,
has he betrayed Morgan McSweeney? Is that what you're saying?
He lied to everybody. And now what people need to see the extent to which he lied, and that will happen as these documents are released, so people can see.
Can you answer the question?
Deceptions.
Is Morgan McSweeney safe in his job?
Yes, of course he is. The problem when someone lies isn't that they lie to you, because there can be liars in any walk of life. It's what happens when you find out you've been lied to.
I mean, the defence that all that's happened here is we were lied to, I don't know if that will ease pressure he's feeling at the moment from his backbench MPs, but we'll see. We'll also see probably some quite revealing information in the documents. Do you know when we'll see those documents?
Well, they're just saying as soon as possible, but it's not in the government's hands anymore because they've had to agree that the Parliamentary Committee, Intelligence and Security Committee of MPs will actually be the ones going through the documents and deciding if there are any that shouldn't be released because of national security concerns or other reasons. And they've had to agree to this because MPs thought the government was perpetrating some kind of cover-up by suggesting that there might be reasons of international diplomacy why they might decide not to release some of the documents, which is what the government's original plan was, that their civil servants would go through that. And then the other complicating factor is that the police are carrying out a criminal investigation into the suggestions that contained in the Epstein files that Peter Mandelson had passed sensitive government information, financial information to Jeffrey Epstein when he was a minister under Gordon Brown. So the police have said, well, they don't want to compromise their criminal investigation, so they're not that happy about some of the documents being released now anyway. Now, for number 10, I think we have from the Prime Minister, he's really pinning his defence that he'd been lied to and he didn't know any more than anyone else and that he, you know, made the right decision at the time but clearly wouldn't have done if he knew everything he knows now. That really rests on seeing what's in these files, and I think when they're still not in the public domain, that's a risky kind of space because it just kind of gives rise to even more debate about what is in there and whether we can, you know, frankly believe what the government has had to say about it.
Thanks, Amanda.
Now, President Trump is pulling hundreds of immigration agents out of Minneapolis after conceding they could use a softer touch. This after, of course, 2 US citizens were shot and killed by ICE agents last month.
So 700 immigration agents are being removed from Minneapolis. That does leave 2,000 agents who will still be there, though. In an interview with NBC, President Trump defended the presence of ICE agents but said the 2 deaths should not have happened.
I learned that maybe we can use a little bit of a softer touch. but you still have to be tough. These are criminals. We're dealing with really hard criminals. But look, I've called the people, I've called the governor, I've called the mayor, spoke to them, had great conversations with them, and then I see them ranting and raving out there, literally as though a call wasn't made. We've done a great job everywhere.
You mentioned Renee Good and Alex Peretti not being angels. Do you think any of that justified what happened to them, though?
No, I don't. It should have not happened. It was a very sad, to me, it was a very sad incident, two incidents. And, you know, they mentioned the one now, they don't mention the other. Well, I think they were both sad.
And, of course, it does sort of continue the theme, maybe people would say from an incredibly low base, of slightly easing tensions in the US in Minneapolis over the last couple of weeks. But as I say, from a low base.
ICE agents also linked to our next story because the Winter Olympics is formally launching tomorrow. You've got the glitzy opening ceremony in Milan, we've got Mariah Carey singing, you've got Snoop Dogg carrying a torch. But the US are sending immigration agents or ICE agents to the Games, and that, of course, is causing some controversy. Well,
the president of the International Olympic Committee, Kirsty Coventry, has called for sport to be a neutral ground. Our sports correspondent, Rob Harris, has this for us from Milan.
These are the snowy scenes organisers want the Winter Olympics to be focused on. But more than 4 hours drive away from Cortina here in Milan, it could be a very different picture during these Winter Games because the geopolitical situation with anger against the United States is filtering in to the Olympics. And with ICE agents due here to protect the US delegation, it sparked protests here in Milan. Coming just weeks after agents from the Immigration and Customs Enforcement killed 2 US citizens protesting against ICE. They'll be here protecting Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio for the opening ceremony. And it's something I asked the IOC President, Kirsty Coventry, about. Would you see it as free speech and understand it if Americans were jeered in the opening ceremony, or do you have a message for them to be respected?
I hope that the opening ceremony is seen by everyone of an opportunity to be respectful towards each other, right? And so for me, I hope that the opening ceremony will be a reminder to everyone of how we could be, and that's what I think these games will also bring.
One of the expected stars of these games will be an American, Lindsey Vonn, competing at 41, despite tearing an ACL just a week ago at an event. But what about Team GB? Well, they're targeting potentially a record 8 medals at a Winter Olympics. The previous best was 5.
I'm really keen to kind of disrupt that natural order of the Winter Olympics and the kind of norm nations. But of course, like, winter sports comes down to so much jeopardy, and you get the wrong edge and that could be you out. Wrong side of the inch in a curling game, I know that firsthand, how difficult that can be.
It is already a celebratory atmosphere here in Milan. The torch is here for the final part of the relay before the cauldron is lit on Friday.
Rob Harris there for us, looking forward to the Winter Olympics. Now, US TV anchor Savannah Guthrie and her family have released an emotional plea to anyone who may be holding their mother, Nancy, for ransom. The 84-year-old was last seen on Saturday evening at her home in Arizona.
Our mom is our heart and our home. She is 84 years old. Her health, her heart is fragile. We too have heard the reports about a ransom letter in the media. As a family, we are doing everything that we can. We are ready to talk. However, we live in a world where voices and images are easily manipulated. We need to know, without a doubt, that she is alive and that you have her. We want to hear from you, and we are ready to listen.
Very difficult to listen to the distress there. Well, Nancy's family and friends held a candlelit church service in Tucson in Arizona in the hope of her safe return. Officials say there were signs of forced entry at her home, and the local sheriff said he does not believe she left that building willingly.
Sky's Martha Kellner has more for us on this.
Savannah Guthrie is a professional communicator. She's been one of America's most successful TV presenters for years and years now, but this was an entirely different public address, and the events of the last few days, the disappearance, kidnapping of her 84-year-old mother, Nancy, have clearly taken their toll on the entire Guthrie family. Savannah Guthrie speaking publicly for the first time, flanked by her brother Cameron and her sister Annie, who also spoke, her voice breaking at times, particularly as she addressed her mother directly. She said, "Mummy, if you are hearing this, you're a strong woman. You are God's precious daughter." She also addressed the people or persons believed to be the kidnappers of her mother. She said, yes, we're ready to talk, but we need proof of life. She also addressed her mother's health issues. She's known to have heart problems, wears a pacemaker, and she said she lives in constant pain, that she needs medication in order to survive, and that she needs that medication in order not to suffer, because it has now been 4 days since her disappearance, either in the late hours of Saturday evening or the early hours of Sunday morning. Police spent several hours on Wednesday searching around and inside Nancy Guthrie's home. They went in the wooded area around the back of the home. They also searched her garage. So this search seems to be intensifying. The President is also now in contact with Savannah Guthrie. He says he's spoken to her and assured her that federal and local law enforcement are at the family's disposal immediately. So the search for Nancy Guthrie goes on, but certainly the Guthrie family seem to be approaching these ransom notes as though they are legitimate.
Now, we've been reported this morning about the kind of growing fury, I think it's fair to say, towards Keir Starmer and some of his staff members from Labour MPs who are absolutely angry, feel let down by the decision to appoint Peter Mandelson to the job as US Ambassador. And we're joined now by someone who knows a bit about it, who knows a bit about the mood of the party as well, the former Downing Street Director of Communications, James Lyons. It's great to have you with us. I mean, you were right in there, right beside Keir Starmer pretty recently, right? And I'm sure your phone is full right now of Labour MPs, Labour figures. What's the mood like?
Well, first of all, thanks very much for having me on. I cannot repeat the content of the messages that I've been sent over the last 24, 36 hours. Even if this show was going out after the 10 p.m. watershed, there is a mood of fury, there is a mood of despair. And what is quite telling, actually, is that the kind of gallows humour that is often very evident in Westminster and Whitehall has left the room some time ago. So I don't think anybody should be under any illusions about the gravity of the situation and the spot that the Prime Minister finds himself in.
Just to underline for our viewers, you were Keir Starmer's Director of Communications until September.
I left in the autumn, yeah, in September.
So you know, throughout a lot of this period of time. At the moment, you know, I'm paraphrasing it, but Steve Reed's kind of gist was, look, what's happened here is somebody lied to us. Obviously, with what we've now learned, we regret appointing him. Is that a fair framing of how things unfolded?
Well, look, I think you do need to go back to the context when Peter Mandelson was appointed. I think people knew that this was a high-risk, high-reward strategy, but I don't think anyone knew quite how risky it was. There had been reports. I think a lot of people right now are being wise after the fact, if I'm honest, because it had been reported that Peter Mandelson had maintained some kind of contact with Jeffrey Epstein. As I understand it, the dossier compiled by the Propriety and Ethics team in the Cabinet Office was a summary of what had been publicly reported. And yet, at the time that Peter Mandelson appointed, he was a public figure in this country. He was the star of a radio show and podcast on a sister station of your own. He was in the running. He was in the running to be Chancellor of one of our great universities. And in fact, in the media appearances he did when he was appointed, none of this was raised. Now, what we don't know, and I don't know, is what Peter Mandelson said about that contact when he was questioned ahead of his appointment. And that is what we will get to see as a result of what happened in Parliament yesterday. Now, there is a curveball here in that the police are now saying that some of this information shouldn't be released, which I find very hard to understand because nobody's going to dispute the messages. What they will be disputing is whether or not that constitutes a criminal offence. So, as I say, I think some people are being very wise after the fact. I can't recall any of the opposition parties raising this back when Peter Mandelson was appointed.
Can I ask you about Morgan McSweeney? Because they were close, right? Are close. And Morgan McSweeney, Keir Starmer's chief of staff, pushed the Mandelson appointment. I think that's fair to say. An awful lot of anger towards him on the Labour benches. We had Steve Reid on this morning saying he is safe in his job. You obviously work closely with him. Is it time for Morgan McSweeney to go?
Well, first of all, as a member of the trade union of former political advisors or political advisors, I am not going to call for any political advisor to go. It's always very easy to blame the advisor. And look, in every administration, there are figures who are lightning rods for criticism. That is definitely one of the many roles that Morgan plays at the moment.
So actually, is he a shield to Starmer? I mean, should the anger be directed towards Keir Starmer?
Well, look, I think there's plenty of anger going around for everyone at the moment, but it's unclear to me how it would help the Prime Minister if he lost Morgan. At a time like this, where you're in this kind of spot, you want your most capable and most loyal aides around you.
When we look at how things unfolded yesterday, how worrying is it the way in which the government was forced, on an unbelievably high-profile fact, to cave, hand over the authority for what gets released versus doesn't to a parliamentary committee from backbenchers led by Angela Rayner? I mean, his authority is really damaged.
It has been the case for some time that if the government were to legislate for motherhood and apple pie, a sizable chunk of the Parliamentary Labour Party would demand rhubarb and custard. And that is a fact of political life for this administration and for this Prime Minister. That said, it was definitely a misstep, I think, around the amendment they put forward. As I understand it, it was cobbled together rather rapidly and clearly it was a misjudgment not to just hand it over to the Intelligence and Security Committee. They are very respected, very independent. Lord Beamish, who I've known for the best part of 30 years, is a very, very respected figure who chairs it. And, I am not going to claim for one moment that the government have handled all of this well. I had, as I was saying earlier on, just left government when the whole Peter Mandelson explosion occurred. And I think it was a mistake to allow him to remain in the Labour Party back in the autumn. I think it would have been much better to take action then to remove him rather than let him resign this week. So, as I say, I'm not claiming that this has been perfectly handled. Nothing ever is. But a lot of people are being wise after the fact.
Yeah, I'm interested in when you say that, because Peter Mandelson is someone who's been sacked multiple times throughout his career. Right?
I mean, I am old enough to have followed him round the TV studios during, I think, what was his second sacking?
Yeah.
When I was a junior reporter for the Press Association.
So I guess my question is, how has he been able to fail upwards over a period of decades? And what does it say about, I guess, the culture of Westminster? And I'm not just talking about, the politicians. I'm talking about the whole lot.
Yeah, Sophie, I've seen what you've said about the kind of culture of Westminster. And look, having spent a very long time as a political journalist myself, of course, there is the way that Westminster operates relies on people having contacts, having leaks, having relationships with politicians. But I would say the reason that Peter Mandelson has managed to come back in the past is not necessarily to do with that. It's more to do with the fact that, however huge the flaws are, he's a man of incredible skill and capacity in some areas.
Can I just come back to the original appointment again? Do you sit here now and think, yes, people are using the benefit of hindsight to jump on the bandwagon to criticise the Prime Minister, and this person lied, so it was a forgivable error? Or do you think this was a major, major error of judgment by the Prime Minister to appoint him in the first place?
Well, I think we don't know what Peter Mandelson said about the contact that, you know, lots of journalists knew about, lots of politicians knew about. But if you just let me finish,
I just want to step back from this a second, because we've also touched on the point, you know, for one of your former colleagues to say, oh, but he lied and therefore we were misled. He's got a track record of not always speaking the whole truth. He's got a track record of misleading and letting down his former prime ministers that he's worked for. So again, I just step back, and there's lots of caveats. Was it an error of judgment to appoint him? Well,
look, what I think is really important to bear in mind is the revelations that have come out over the last 48 hours or so, the extraordinary breaches of trust committed by Peter Mandelson, which have horrified people of, frankly, all parties who I know, who've either politicians or people who've worked as political aides. I mean, it is off the chart. People cannot imagine that somebody did this. Not only was none of this known when he was appointed, but none of it could have been known, because in one of the most extraordinary facts in this story, the guy was using a private email address to which the government doesn't have any access or any records to conduct government business, and that simply wouldn't happen today. I mean, the tech that you use now, you can't even screenshot your emails.
Just finally, because we are out of time, given the conversations you're having with Labour MPs, is Keir Starmer going to survive? What's your assessment?
Can he survive? Absolutely he can. We're going to have to see what comes out as a result of the process that was put in train yesterday. It's never a given for any prime minister, is it? But we need to see what comes out. I mean, I think one of the dangerous things for the government is the sheer breadth and scale of what's been committed to coming out, and it's obviously not.
It's not in their control.
We all know that there can be any number of things in those messages on any side.
James, thanks for joining us. Really fantastic to get your perspective. When we come back, we're going to be talking to some members of the first all-female sailing team to go around the world who completed that extraordinary task recently. They'll be with us on set.
best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome, Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Ridge and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started. Hello again. Now to an incredible feat. A team of 8 sailors have become the first all-female crew to go all the way around the globe without stopping. They completed the journey on January 26th after 57 days out on the ocean.
And I'm delighted to say that we're joined by some of the team, Dee Kafari, Deborah Blair, Molly Lambert-Lapointe and Rebecca Hornell. A very good morning to you all. Thank you so much all for joining us. Congratulations. And Dee, I come to you first. This was completed a couple of weeks ago, less than that.
Well, yeah, just over a week, and it all seems like a bit of a blur, really, but it's very nice to be on dry land.
Well, I bet, and this is after 57 days and 21 hours all at sea together, non-stop.
Yes, it
no breaks.
Sounds like a long time, but actually that's a really fast lap of the planet.
No, I'm not downplaying. I'm not downplaying it. I'm not downplaying it.
Yeah, we're talking about the length of the journey rather than how long it took you.
Well, it's quite a long time for all of you, Rebecca, to be putting up with each other. You all get on very well, but 57 days is quite a long period of time.
Yeah, 57 days on, well, we say it's a small area, but for us it's quite a big boat, 100-foot trimaran, but the living quarters are quite small, so we do get to be in close contact with each other the entire time.
And how does it work in terms of, like, food, drink? Because we're looking at the vessel on the sea at the minute, and look, it's small, right? It's small. Like, how do you eat? How do you drink water? How does it work?
Food is definitely Deborah's topic.
Okay, go on then.
We have freeze-dried meals, so you just put water in and it rehydrates. And we have a water maker that produces water from the salt water. So we have unlimited water, but it takes a lot of energy to produce
How are the freeze-dried meals? Are they OK? Or
Some of them are good.
Which is the best one?
Mac and cheese is my favourite. I love it.
It's always everyone's favourite, that, I think, even on land. Molly, wanted to ask about, obviously, as we would expect, the 57 days weren't plain sailing, to use the pun. That there were some massive challenges along the way. I read on one thing, which I'm not even sure what this quite means, that the sail exploded at one point.
The sail pretty much did explode. Yeah, there were definitely some challenges, more than we'd hoped for, but yeah, issues with the lock, with the foil, with the sail. But we overcame everything and were able to complete the lap, so really proud of us.
And was the biggest challenge, Dee, making it round in such an amazing time? Or just completing it? Were you always confident when you set off that you would?
I don't think you can ever be fully confident that it's all going to go to plan. Many people set off and they don't make it round. So accomplishing the Southern Ocean round in Cape Horn, for these guys it was their first time. That was a milestone. But the finish line was the ultimate milestone. And by then, it didn't matter how long it had taken us. And Storm Ingrid, that we all encountered, was literally between us and the finish line. So it was like the last miles were almost the hardest miles to achieve.
What happened in Storm Ingrid then?
It was the most horrendous sea state of the whole trip. So the Southern Ocean felt easy in comparison. So it was strong winds, it was big waves, and we had to go through it in order to get to the finish line. So we were slowed down, we were just kind of nursing the boat to the finish line, and it was really, really good to cross that.
Not bad.
And Deborah, tell us about why you wanted to be involved with this.
It's such an amazing project. It's my first time crossing the equator, going in the Southern Ocean. And yeah, everyone's super cool. There's lots of experienced people on board. And yeah, it was cool to do a first. There's not many firsts left.
And Rebecca, in terms of the kind of takeaways that you personally taken and what you want other people to, hear about today, what would you say?
I'd say that I'd like people to see that we have accomplished this. Like, there's
not many people in the world that have sailed around the world, and I think it's really cool to be able to be a role model for the future generation of female sailors and male sailors to show them that it is possible and, get around real quick. Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. And then, Molly, in terms of not saying that this is necessary anytime soon, but are there other challenges to come that you want to take on in future?
Absolutely, and yeah, hopefully we can go back at same team or similar team, and do even faster around the world, do even better. We all learned a lot and have a lot more to give, I think, so.
Can I ask one other question that I'm always quite fascinated in? Because I'm sure there are times when it's all hands to the deck, when the storm is all on go. But do you have moments when it's kind of you're killing time? Are you like playing Uno? Are there like word games that you're playing?
Uno.
Are you telling each other your deepest secrets? Like how did that sort of social stuff come? Like
I did a lot of researching of islands we went past in the quiet moments.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah, because in the Southern Ocean, there's an awful lot of islands going past. I told everyone a lot of facts. They really enjoyed the facts I told them.
It's not all full on the whole time, so you do get some respite and you do, you experience something very unique with a very intense environment, so you get to know everybody really well.
And a lot about the islands too.
Yeah.
Can you give us an island fact?
Falkland Islands has the longest corridor in the world.
The longest corridor?
The longest corridor on the RAF. Like just corridor in a building. The longest corridor, yeah.
What, an actual corridor in a building?
Yeah, on the Falkland Islands.
Trust me, the facts were really quite obscure.
Yeah. I was thinking, is it a sea corridor? Or is it
like on the RAF Mount Pleasant base?
That is a great fact. I like that a lot. That's a good for the next pub quiz.
Fantastic. Yeah, Dee, Deborah, Molly, Rebecca, thank you all so much for joining us, and huge congratulations. You said all hands on deck. I said plain sailing. We actually used phrases like that where they meant something.
I'm here for it, Wilf.
Me too. I'm very pleased with ourselves. Your achievement was a bit better, but we'll take it. We're going to have a quick look at the weather now.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
So the rest of the week looks pretty unsettled. Spells of rain and hail snow bringing localised disruption. It will be pretty mild but windy this morning, cloudy for many. Central parts look mostly dry, but north-eastern Britain and Northern Ireland can expect some showery outbreaks. Wintry on the hills. The south looks more generally wet. And the rain there is going to then extend to most of Ireland, Wales and all of central England by midday. My goodness, we are really over February's weather, aren't we? Snow is likely from Snowdonia northwards as well. Elsewhere, it's going to stay dull for most, and north-eastern Britain can expect some further patchy rain and hail snow. But north-western Scotland looks fine. It will be chilly in the north and east, mild in the southwest, and it's going to be windy absolutely everywhere.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Now, the conviction of neonatal nurse Lucy Letby for the murder of 7 babies is now the subject of a Netflix documentary. The investigation of Lucy Letby features never-before-seen footage of her arrest and police questioning.
So the investigative journalist and host of the podcast Was There Ever a Crime? The Trial of Lucy Letby, John Sweeney, joins us now. Great to have you with us. I think it's fair to say there has been a groundswell of people who are saying that Lucy Letby's conviction was unsafe. Are you one of them?
I tweeted on the first day she was convicted in 23, sometimes the law gets it wrong. So immediately. And the reason I didn't do this for no reason, I did it because I'm one of the people who helped free Sally Clark, who was the mum, actually from Cheshire, who was convicted of murdering her babies on a statistic 73 million to 1.
This
and
was the shaking thing.
It was, yes, and it was, but the evidence that the court heard from an eminent doctor, Professor Sir Roy Meadow, was entirely wrong. And in this case, the jury saw this shift pattern, 7 murders, and Lucy's on the shift all the time. But what they don't see is that there are 10 other baby deaths, and they're not suspicious. And so there's a second chart, if you like, which the jury never saw. And from that moment, I questioned this thing. And then later, 14 of the world's top neonatologists, these are the people who look after premature babies, saying there are no murders.
It's An extraordinary case, and as you say, lots of things have been pointed out since, and including last summer when there were some hearings, press conferences held by those who have questioned it. What I think really stands out significantly to me is the defence, I think I'm right in saying this, never called an expert witness.
There was one witness, he was the plumber in the hospital, and actually the plumber was pretty good. What he talked about was that on a regular basis, weekly, there were problems in the hospital with raw sewage coming down and some of the time hitting the sinks in the neonatal unit. And what this means is, raw sewage can kill somebody like us. It can certainly kill premature kids. There was a real problem, and the doctors did nothing about it. But there were no expert witnesses. Now, Lucy's now got a new defence. And the one good thing about this documentary, which I thought was a bit rubbish, frankly, and I've made quite a few myself, so I know what I'm talking about. I thought the cops in it, honestly, watching it, listening to the police, it made me want to start robbing banks in Cheshire because the police there are so stupid.
Don't do that, by the way.
Yeah, OK, I won't. But
that's not advice to the viewers.
OK, but I'm just trying to sort of, in a sense, cut through to the point, which is this, is that in a case like this, you've got to ask a simple question, not who murdered these babies, but was there a crime? Well, and to my satisfaction, there is nothing like, no one asked that question properly.
Well, I think people would then, if this wasn't the reason, would come to the question of how did so many babies die and who's responsible for that, which is another point. But can I just step back from this? Because clearly Lucy Letby has been convicted of these murders, and a jury, reached that conclusion. If better witnesses could have been called by the defence, if these questions were failed to be asked, including by journalists at the time, why weren't they back then?
I think the defence made a terrible mistake by not getting a series of doctors to say that the Crown-style witness, a guy called Dowie Evans, is talking rubbish. And that's what they now say. Listen, I'm using plain English, but if Dowie Evans says...
This was the prosecution's
expert witness. And by the way, he's told another interviewer, why are you doing this? Well, to pay for my daughter's horses and my son's cars. So you can make good money out of this. Now, there's the 14 of the world's experts. The top guy is a guy called Shuli, and he's in the back end of this documentary. But he's the man who wrote the research paper, which Dowie Evans was part of the prosecution witness, and this expert who wrote the paper said he's got it wrong. So the problem in this is you don't have any evidence, not a single bit of CCTV, where Lucy harms the baby.
Can I just make a point that I do think, because look, I'm very, very aware when we cover the story that there are families at the heart of this, and there is babies who have died, and I can imagine that for them it's very, very difficult to see this public debate. Not to say it shouldn't happen, but I just want to reflect on that for just one moment. What people say who believe that Lucy Letby's conviction was safe is that they say that if you look at the evidence in the round, then that is why the jury came to that decision, and you can't just cherry-pick pieces of evidence. And I guess my other question is, do you think that if she hadn't been, a white, blonde, young woman, if she'd been like a black nurse, for example, that there would be this similar groundswell of anger and campaigning about the conviction?
So on the first point, I've got 2 kids. My granddaughter was in hospital yesterday, all fine.
By the way,
but you worry about that. And listen, my heart goes down to the families. But I think, or rather, the evidence is strong. This is a catastrophically failing hospital inside a failing NHS. And listen, I know that, I tore my knee, I couldn't walk for 7 months, and when I came back from Kyiv with a broken knee, I had to wait 7 hours before somebody could look at it. At St Tommy's Hospital, the MP's hospital down the road. So the NHS was collapsing at this moment, and if my child died, not because a nurse murdered the baby, but because the NHS is terrible and there was raw sewage in the sinks. I want to know that because I believe in the NHS and I want the NHS to be better. On the second issue, there are There's also a thing about burning witches, and witches have been burned, and it's all nonsense. And every now and then society loses its mind about this stuff. So yeah, okay, Lucy's white, Lucy's attractive, Lucy's been to Ibiza. It doesn't make her a murderer. And it doesn't make people like me, who look at the evidence, who've done it before, this isn't my first rodeo, and say, no, I question this. I question it. By the way, I'm doing a podcast, a new one. It's called Lucy Letby, Was She Wrong? If people are interested in the fine detail of this, do that. But instinctively, sometimes the law gets it wrong, and I think that's what's happened in this case. Oh, and by the way, the footage that the cops show of them raiding, people say that she's impassive. You listen to Lucy's mother screaming and her saying, Mum, I didn't do it. And she says, I know. You listen to that. And you go, oh, it's OK, it's safe. No, it's not. It's not safe.
Great to have you on. Thank you very much indeed.
John Sweeney there. Of course, a reminder that Lucy Letby has been convicted of these crimes as things stand. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking a bit about the economy, of course, ahead of the Bank of England decision later today.
I'm James Matthews, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C. Do you fear a fourth indictment? Does your government owe an apology to the British home children?
Great to see you.
Does your government owe them an apology? The fact that they were intercepted, does that indicate a military weakness on the part of Iran?
No.
Free, wherever you get your news. There's no doubting the strength of this hurricane as it roars through. You can feel a devastating power. It had been a difficult night in a deadly storm.
Bang, bang. You can hear it hitting the windows.
Our houses are okay.
It's depressing. As bad as all of this is, it could have been much worse. Today, this land they call sacred is at the heart of America's electric car revolution.
To me, it's a sacred ground.
The white gold rush is a race that Biden doesn't want to lose. I've covered some of the biggest stories in the world. Donald Trump, 45th President of the United States, it would appear is about to learn his fate.
Escort coming out!
San Quentin houses America's largest death row. They rarely allow cameras onto the condemned block.
James Matthews, Sky News. I want to be treated equally like everyone else. It's one step closer to getting out, to getting off death row.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Mr. Trump, James Matthews from Sky News.
Hey, James.
We're diminished by claims that you're a racist.
Question?
Mr. Musk, has your ignorance and ego cost Ukrainian lives? Vladimir Putin calls you outstanding. What do you call him, sir?
He's from Sky News. He's from Sky News. He's entitled to ask me questions.
There are dozens of people desperately clambering to get onto that boat. It is a chaotic scene that is being watched by dozens of French police officers on the beach. My biggest challenge was covering migration across Europe, at land and sea, and meeting desperate people who said they would do anything to get to another country. Adam Parsons, Sky News.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist. A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what? Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Welcome back. The UK's impact economy has grown so fast it now makes up 15% of our GDP. If you haven't heard of it, it's essentially a movement of people using their money to do good. That could be through philanthropy, investment or business. Money is intentionally directed to help tackle social and environmental issues rather than focus on private gain or profit. It's a field growing incredibly fast. The government launched a separate body to take charge of it. Let's have a look at some of the details. Well, a new report revealing that the so-called impact economy is worth over £428 billion, or 15% of the UK's national income. £105 billion of this comes from the regulated impact economy, comprised of organisations that are legally required to provide benefits to society, like charities. The rest, £323 billion, comes from self-regulated impact economy, made up of impact-led businesses and credit unions. We're joined now by Jason Arthur, Chief Executive of the charity Mission 44, who is with us here in studio. And Mission 44 was founded by Sir Lewis Hamilton. Very good morning to you, Jason. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Honestly, those numbers I kind of almost can't believe. 15% of the economy we're talking about.
Yeah, it's huge, and it shows the importance of organisations like charities, philanthropists like Lewis, and businesses actually using their influence, their power, their resources to make a positive difference.
Mission 44 was founded relatively recently?
Yes, in 2021. So with Lewis as our founder, people will be aware of him in terms of what he's achieved, greatest F1 driver of all time, but what they aren't necessarily aware of are the challenges that he experienced. Dyslexic at school, permanently excluded, and then obviously within motorsport, an incredibly elite sport, the difficulties of getting to the top of that sport are huge. It's very costly. There aren't many people of colour, not enough women within the sport either. So I think for Lewis, having achieved everything that he has achieved, for him it was about making sure that he was able to give back, support young people who may not have exactly the same experiences as he had, but similar ones, so that they can A, thrive at school, and B, access great careers in science, technology, engineering and maths. So that's what we focus on at Mission 44. And
in terms of the kind of daily involvement that you get from him, how regularly is he involved?
Oh, he's hugely involved. So he has given 20 million to Mission 44 to get us up and running, which is fantastic, and another great example of philanthropists that ties in with the impact economy, and the growth of it over the last 10 years. But beyond that, he campaigns with us. We met last year with the Prime Minister, a group of young people, and some of the organisations that we in turn invest in at Mission 44 to reflect on how do we build a more inclusive education system. He meets with young people regularly, he meets with our partners, so he's super engaged. And
clearly this report is quite encouraging about the status of goodwill, of giving, of the impact economy in this country. It's not small. But what needs to be done, or what can be done, to encourage it to grow even further?
Well, it's positive that the government have created the Office for the Impact Economy, and it's going to be critical that that office, which I believe is within the Cabinet Office, has some real backbone and teeth to drive change across government. So certainly when it comes to what the government can do, incentivising more philanthropists to come forward, like Lewis has, convening, bringing together charities with public sector organisations, with government departments to co-create solutions to some of the challenges that we're seeing, not just for young people, but across a number of different social issues. And then I think it's incumbent on businesses, philanthropists to also think about what more they can do, because if we're not tackling, rising youth unemployment or the challenges in housing, the environmental crisis that we've got, then that's not only bad on a social side, but it's also bad for the economy.
Where do you stand on the tax deductibility of making donations? The US has a different approach to this, in that here, if you donate money, as we might all have done when your friend's running a marathon or whatever, you can say, yes, I pay taxes in the UK, click gift aid, and the government boosts the amount a little bit. In the US, it's done differently, which is you can deduct against your taxes if you give money away. It sort of creates a bigger incentive, I guess, for people to donate money to charities. Is that something we should consider or not?
I mean, I think there's still a lot of room for gift aid to see a growth in what current philanthropists or potential philanthropists could be giving. So I'm still pretty supportive of our approach within the UK. Absolutely, we should look at the US and other models to see whether there are things that we can learn. But ultimately, one of the things that I find about the US is that the culture of giving is much stronger. I think that's in large part because their public sector isn't necessarily as well funded as in places like the UK. But I think we should be proud within the UK of the role that our businesses, that our philanthropists, that our charities are playing, and people should talk more about it and encourage others to also be giving.
Jason, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Really good to see you. And we shall see how Lewis does in the new season.
Fingers crossed.
Looking forward to that. Great stuff. Jason Arthur there, CEO of Mission 44.
Now, the Washington Post has laid off hundreds of employees. It's approximately a third of its workforce.
Well, the Amazon founder, Jeff Bezos, owns the paper and has faced significant criticism for the decision. The Washington Post, just, to state, I guess the obvious, is one of, if not the most storied political newspaper in the US. Woodward and Bernstein broke, the stories of Watergate, for example, in the Nixon administration. He bought the newspaper in 2013 at a sort of different moment in politics, where he's sort of backing journalism, wanting to help it get through the crisis. And this pivot is therefore particularly punishing, because people are saying, well, if you'd left us alone, we could have gone our own way. Again, more to say on that, but we're a little out of time here. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with all the day's top stories.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
Good morning, it is 9 o'clock and welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
With Sophy and Wilfred, very good morning from me as well. Lots to get to.
A Prime Minister under pressure. Keir Starmer is forced by his own MPs to release files about Lord Mandelson's appointment as US ambassador.
US TV host Savannah Guthrie makes an emotional plea for the return of her abducted mother, saying the family's ready to talk to whoever's holding the 84-year-old.
Plus, Snoop Dogg draws a crowd for the Winter Olympics torch relay. It looks like he's loving it, doesn't he? That's in Milan. Also today, the old-fashioned words making a comeback. We'll ask Giles Brandreth whether we'll see the return of Codswallop to, well, it's returned to our conversations. And it's the show that made Bill Murray, Tina Fey and Will Ferrell household names. Now Sky unveils its lineup for the UK version of Saturday Night Live. Good morning. The Prime Minister is under intense pressure, his premiership hanging in the balance once again over the questions around the appointment of Peter Mandelson as US Ambassador, despite knowing about his ongoing relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. So it was a heated PMQs, and Keir Starmer conceded that the vetting process had made it clear Lord Mandelson continued his relationship with Epstein after he was convicted, and the government's now going to be forced to publish all of the documents, or most of the documents about the appointment, after a revolt led by his own MPs. It's more than just embarrassing. It's shaping up to be one of the biggest political scandals in recent memory. Delighted to say that our Deputy Political Editor, Sam Coates, is here. Good morning, Sam. Good morning. To talk about what was a truly crazy day in Parliament yesterday. What do the votes that we saw there, the tone in Parliament, say, and what do the messages you're getting behind the scenes say about the mood in the Labour Party right now?
Look, I think yesterday was extraordinarily significant, and I spent a long time last night actually in Parliament picking through the rubble and the smoke of the disaster that Keir Starmer is confronting. There's one big fact, which is kind of almost a constitutional fact that emerged yesterday, which is in all of the mess of the appointment of Lord Mandelson, Keir Starmer needs to assert his authority in order to get back on the front foot. Twice, he attempted to either block the disclosure of or curb the release of documents relating to Lord Mandelson's appointment as ambassador to Washington. And twice, his authority was challenged in the Commons by his own MPs, and twice he was unable to get his way. That means, right now, Keir Starmer is unable to, when he needs it on matters of personal authority, command a majority in the House of Commons. Such is the scale of perpetual revolt on something that is clearly really core to his premiership. And that, I mean, just worth just pausing for a minute, because he's got this huge majority. He obviously couldn't do the same on the welfare vote as well. It's kind of reminiscence of that. I guess, you know, when that happens, is it all over for a Prime Minister? Look, you were getting things like a Labour MP said, he's dead, dead, dead. I was getting excoriating criticism of him and his team. It definitely a gear up from what we heard before. But again, we've got to pause and try and game what comes next. What we're not getting is MPs publicly saying he should go now. I think that silence is quite important. We're getting only a tiny handful of MPs saying that his Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, who's a lightning rod for all of this, who really orchestrated the appointment of Lord Mandelson, only a handful of MPs are calling for him to go. And there are people who have their eye on the prize if Keir Starmer falls under a bus, but none of them are really ready at the moment. So we're basically, in terms of Labour Party politics, in a Mexican standoff where people don't think that the current incumbent really has very much more road to go, but they can't work out how they get to a new world. Although it's worth saying for viewers at home, that is a universe where the Prime Minister and the governance of this country is all dependent on the kind of internal politics of one of the various factions of the Labour Party. It must look incredibly unsatisfactory for people at home. Well, it's reminiscent of a position we were in a couple of years ago, of course, the other way around. I'm interested, therefore, on what is next. Obviously, we're waiting for these documents to be published and eagle-eyes when they are. We've got a by-election coming up, let alone the May local elections. This presumably doesn't help Labour's chances in that by-election. Are those things you're watching closely, looking ahead to? God, yeah, almost anything could be a trigger take the documents. After the intervention of Scotland Yard last night, we don't know when these documents are coming out. Some people think sooner, some people think later. The involvement of the police can often gum things up for months, if not years. We've got one more week of term and then recess, and then it's the by-election. And the mood on the ground, MPs say, is not good for Labour. You've got this toxic campaign, the Greens campaigning on Gaza, Reform campaigning on grooming gangs. It's ugly. It's unclear what's going to happen there if Labour lose. Could that be a trigger? Maybe. But then there are elections in May, not that long after. So is that gap too short for a contest? We don't know. I think that almost anything could act as a trigger if the party feels ready. But the sense I got last night, talking to a lot of people, is that it's not, and campaigns and alternative prime ministers need more time because there are fewer easy answers than anybody wants.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it? Like you say, what happens in the coming weeks and couple of months is going to be all important. Sam, always good to have you on the programme. Thanks very much for coming on.
The US TV anchor Savannah Guthrie and her family have released an emotional plea to anyone who could be holding their mother, Nancy, for ransom. The 84-year-old was last seen on Saturday evening at a home in Arizona. Here is Savannah Guthrie sitting alongside her brother and sister.
Our mom is our heart and our home. She is 84 years old. Her health, her heart is fragile. We too have heard the reports about a ransom letter in the media. As a family, we are doing everything that we can. We are ready to talk. However, we live in a world where voices and images are easily manipulated. We need to know, without a doubt, that she is alive and that you have her. We want to hear from you, and we are ready to listen.
Well, distressing, to hear the worry and the fear in the voices there. Nancy's family and friends held a candlelit church service in Tucson, Arizona, desperately hoping, of course, that she's going to come back home safely. Officials say there were signs of forced entry at her home. The local sheriff said he doesn't believe she left that building willingly.
Here is Martha Kellner for us.
Savannah Guthrie is a professional communicator. She's been one of America's most successful TV presenters for years and years now, but this was an entirely different public address in the events of the last few days. The disappearance, kidnapping of her 84-year-old mother, Nancy, have clearly taken their toll on the entire Guthrie family. Savannah Guthrie speaking publicly for the first time, flanked by her brother Cameron and her sister Annie, who also spoke. Her voice breaking at times, particularly as she addressed her mother directly. She said, "Mummy, if you are hearing this, you're a strong woman. You are God's precious daughter." She also addressed the people or persons believed to be the kidnappers of her mother. She said, yes, we're ready to talk, but we need proof of life. She also addressed her mother's health issues. She's known to have heart problems, wears a pacemaker, and she said she lives in constant pain, that she needs medication in order to survive, and that she needs that medication in order not to suffer, because it has now been 4 days since her disappearance, either in the late hours of Saturday evening or the early hours of Sunday morning. Police spent several hours on Wednesday searching around and inside Nancy Guthrie's home. They went in the wooded area around the back of the home. They also searched her garage. So this search seems to be intensifying. The president is also now in contact with Savannah Guthrie. He says he's spoken to her and assured her that federal and local law enforcement are at the family's disposal immediately. So the search for Nancy Guthrie goes on, but certainly the Guthrie family seem to be approaching these ransom notes as though they are legitimate.
Martha Kellner there for us. Now, President Trump is pulling hundreds of immigration agents out of Minneapolis after conceding they could use a softer touch. It's after 2 US citizens were shot and killed by ICE agents last month.
700 immigration agents are being removed from Minneapolis. That does leave 2,000 agents who will still be there. Donald Trump was speaking to NBC and he defended the presence of ICE agents. He did say, though, the 2 deaths shouldn't have happened.
I learned that maybe we can use a little bit of a softer touch, but you still have to be tough. These are criminals. We're dealing with really hard criminals. But look, I've called the people, I've called the governor, I've called the mayor, spoke to them, had great conversations with them, and then I see them ranting and raving out there, literally as though a call wasn't made. We've done a great job everywhere.
You mentioned Renee Good and Alex Peretti not being angels. Do you think any of that justified what happened to them, though?
No, I don't. It should have not happened. It was a very sad, to me, it was a very sad incident, 2 incidents. And, you know, they mentioned the one now, they don't mention the other. Well, I think they were both sad.
Now, we all know online scams are on the rise. You might have been a victim or know someone who has been. And coming up, we've got an extraordinary report from our reporter who's gone undercover in a scam centre operating in Cambodia. It's a place where fraudsters have been impersonating a legitimate US business to try and steal money.
In recent weeks, the Cambodian government have launched a nationwide crackdown on cyber fraud, emptying out some of the notorious scam compounds. But for years, it's been accused of being complicit in the multi-billion-dollar industry.
So Sky News have travelled to the city of Sihanoukville, and from there, our Asia correspondent Cordelia Lynch has this investigation.
We've been undercover in a scam centre in Cambodia.
Do you think that will be what?
A multi-billion-dollar industry built on human trafficking and forced labour. The Cambodian government, accused of enabling it, is now cracking down. But we found scams still operating in Sihanoukville, a major hub for cyber fraud. On the Telegram messaging app, we pose as wannabe scammers. In just minutes, we're invited for an interview. On the 31st floor of a busy building in room 115, we're told to read a script impersonating a legitimate US company.
I'm reaching out on behalf of K-Force. I'm contacting you to recommend a remote job opportunity. May I ask you if you are over 25 years old? The customer replies yes.
And the police, they say, will tip them off before any raid.
About the stuff too, right? Yeah, there's nothing to worry about it, because if there is anything to happen, they're going to tell us beforehand and then 2 or 3.
The police will give us a warning.
Yes. So you guys don't have to worry about that.
Okay, so everyone will be safe?
Yes.
Okay.
The real K-Force, based in America, confirmed this call centre has no connection to them, and they take fraud and the misuse of their name extremely seriously. The Cambodian government has asked Sky News for the location of the scam building so they can investigate. Many scam workers are trafficked, some tortured. Athena, who was recently freed, is from Indonesia.
When we are work normally, the bosses just walk and playing with the electric shock around us.
Electric shock?
Yeah. And they can punch you with a chair also. It's an iron chair.
Cambodian police have raided many scam centres. This is the abandoned Brother compound in Phnom Penh.
Just look, rows and rows of desks with plugs. We've seen discarded computers elsewhere. And look over here, you've got pockets for the mobile phones which were confiscated by the scam bosses because they wanted their workers focusing.
This board has tips on how to emotionally manipulate victims. Bonuses are promised alongside punishments. And there's CCTV cameras everywhere. In a statement to Sky News, Cambodia's Minister of Information said the royal government of Cambodia rejects claims that it's failing trafficking victims or tolerating abuse linked to scam compounds. Authorities have dismantled criminal networks nationwide, rescued foreign nationals, and coordinated repatriations. But the government has also been accused of profiting from scams and turning a blind eye to slavery and trafficking. The big question is just how far it's really willing to go to crush such a colossal industry. Cordelia Lynch, Sky News, Cambodia.
And the Winter Olympics is formally launching tomorrow. We've got the opening ceremony in Milan. Mariah Carey's going to be singing, Snoop Dogg's carrying a torch. But there is a bit of controversy over the US decision to send immigration agents or ICE agents to the Games. Protesters already taking to the streets.
Well, the president of the International Olympic Committee, Kirsty Coventry, has called for sport to be a neutral ground. Delighted that Rob Harris able to join us live from Milan. There we go. Rob, great to see you. Talk us through a bit on the controversy, but also the excitement, the build-up to the opening ceremony.
Well, it really is a spread-out Olympics, these. There's the base here in Milan. There's also up in the mountains about 4 hours away in Cortina. So that is spreading some of the excitement. So it's not necessarily completely packed yet in Milan, but the opening ceremony tomorrow night at the San Siro. The focus here has been the protests we've seen against those immigration agents from the United States who are coming here to protect the Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who are due here for the ceremony. The Milan mayor calling them a militia that kills following the death of those 2 Americans in Minnesota. And it has created fears that the geopolitical situation will spill into these games, particularly with Donald Trump's threats towards Greenland as well, creating quite a hostile environment in parts of Europe. So I asked the IOC president, Kirsty Coventry, about if she has fears about whether Americans could be booed in the opening ceremony.
I hope that the opening ceremony is seen by everyone of an opportunity to be respectful towards each other, right? And so for me, I hope that the opening ceremony will be a reminder to everyone of how we could be, and that's what I think these games will also bring.
And an American is set to be the star of these games. Lindsey Vonn, at 41, downhill skier who tore her ACL a week ago, but she said that she will still aim to compete up in Cortina. In Cortina, things have actually already got underway. They've begun the curling, and already a success for Team GB. Opening victory there for Bruce Moat and Jen Dodds. They're back in action again today as well. So competition already underway. The opening ceremony, though, tomorrow. Mariah Carey, also Andrea Bocelli going to be in that. But it's so spread out, these games. There's also an opening ceremony in Cortina as well. So these games covering a wide footprint. In part, it's to ensure they don't have to build lots of venues that they don't need, trying to use existing infrastructure across Italy.
Someone's torn their ACL and they're still going to ski.
It is absolutely incredible. Already had a reconstructed knee over the years as well. She suffered the injury a week ago in Switzerland, in Crans-Montana, and you'd thought that would have been the end of her hope. She'd already been out of action, stepped away from the sport, decided to make a comeback, and yes, she's trying to compete. Whether that is a sign of resilience or a bad example in terms of what you have to do on an injury would be for the medics to discuss, but it'd be incredible if she does manage to actually make it in action. There was due to be a training run today. I believe that is not going to be happening.
Rob, great stuff. Thanks very much for that. I was thinking, bad knee or elbow, you could maybe manage the curling. But the super fast downhill stuff.
Honestly.
I mean, mad. By the way, I'm not dismissing curling. I love a bit of the curling.
Yeah,
I didn't actually know it started already. That's my afternoon sorted.
We're excited.
Genuinely, you get really, it's kind of like snooker. It's quite, you think on the surface, a bit slow, a bit boring, but you really get drawn in.
I'm here for it. I'm here for the Winter Olympics in a big way. And I'm also here for Snoop Dogg, because I'll be honest, this has been one of the more puzzling elements of the story. This is Snoop Dogg with the Olympic torch. And the thing that I'm struggling to get my head around is he's an honorary coach, Snoop Dogg. What is going on?
He is gone viral in recent years because of... So obviously LA has the next Summer Olympics, and in Paris in the recent Summer Olympics, he was one of the ambassadors for the LA Olympics coming up and was there kind of throughout the Paris Olympics, and it was just like became a thing. Where's Snoop Dogg next? Which event is he at next? And so they made sure he had a role for this one too, to continue that build-up to the LA Olympics. And he's gained a lot of love, a lot of following.
He's living his best life.
Building up to those LA Olympics, and it's great to see him there again. Right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be talking to the actor Theo James, who is just back from a trip to Syria with the UN. He has family heritage there, and he will talk to us about that.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
Welcome back. We're used to seeing Theo James on our screens in hit shows like The Gentleman and White Lotus, but more recently he's taken on the role as a UN ambassador. He visited Syria last week and witnessed the work being done to support families, especially those returning following the fall from the country's former president, Bashar al-Assad. I spoke to Theo, who told me about his family's links to Syria.
It has a personal connection because my grandfather was Greek and he did what a lot of Syrians were forced to do as a result of, 14 years of civil war in the opposite direction only a couple of generations ago. He and a group of friends were forced to get on a tiny boat, crossed the Aegean, landed in Turkey, then, as refugees walked across land and ended up in Aleppo and then Damascus. And they were taken in by the Syrian people and given safe harbour and looked after.
And I guess many of our generation wouldn't know that it kind of happened in that direction, as you're alluding to. In terms of the situation there, they've been through an unbelievably challenging couple of decades. Has it improved at all, or is there a grave need for help and aid still?
There's a sense of hope, but there's a massive need for aid. At the moment, 90% of the population, 16.5 million people, need humanitarian assistance. They're, literally on the breadline. But after 14 years of war, people really want to move forward. I found, being in Syria, meeting a lot of different Syrian people, they're ambitious and filled with a drive to bring their country back to what it once was. It was interesting to see how many people, there have been 1.4 million Syrian refugees have come back in the year since the regime fell. I met several families who had left, pretty terrible conditions in refugee camps in neighboring countries and had to, but wanted to be home within basically 24 hours of the regime falling. So they came back to their old towns, their old villages, and pitched tents on the remnants of their homes. So I guess it's a reminder that yes, there's hope, but more support is needed.
And what's the sort of message from you, from the UN, towards governments like the UK and elsewhere?
This is one of the biggest humanitarian crises, the biggest movement of population in many, many decades. But what it reminded me is it's often thought of someone else's problem, but it's really not, because it has ramifications around the world. So if Syrians can be supported coming home, then we can, there's an ability to make sure people are safe in their own environment.
And just finally, Theo, you've explained really clearly your personal connection to this story and the importance of the story in its own right. So I can see very clearly your attraction and to it and why you feel the need to speak up. Often, though, a lot of actors can get criticism and people will say things like, stay in your lane and the like. Does that sort of bother you?
This story is particularly personal to me because of my own grandfather's connection to it, and that's why I got into it, really. When the crux of the Syrian crisis was happening, and there were waves of refugees being forced to flee, there was a lot of anti-refugee sentiment in the UK, and that's how it happened for me working with the UNHCR, because I was reminded of what happened to my grandfather, and I was thinking, hold on, this only happened very recently. So I think it's a tricky one, and it's a fine balance that needs to be trod. But as my job really is to just try and humanize it, because I think people get bogged down in facts and figures about the data essentially. But if we're able to tell small human stories about people returning, about the struggles they've been through and hope for the future, then at least we can maybe elicit empathy. And I think that's the most important thing. And one of the best things about humankind is our ability to empathise.
Well, Theo, you've certainly done that with us today. We thank you so much for joining us. Good to see you.
Good to see you, man. Thanks so much.
Theo James there for us. Really enjoyed that conversation. We're going to take a quick break now. When we come back, have a think in your break. What are your favourite words? What words did you used to love that have disappeared from our conversation? We're going to discuss that theme and other linked themes with Giles Brandreth up next.
You've got 3 minutes to email us, mornings@sky.uk. Right, we're talking words next. Research suggests that languages are becoming simpler. We're using more abbreviations, we're using more slang, replacing a number of what we're describing expressive words.
And some Brits think this is a load of codswallop and say old-fashioned words need to make a comeback. I have a feeling one of those Brits is the author and broadcaster Giles Brandreth, who joins us now. Giles, very good to see you. Welcome to Mornings.
Can I say it's so good to see both of you. I love you both. And I'm particularly excited to see you, Wilf, because you won't remember this, but in August 1985, I was working with your dad, and when you were born, he was so thrilled that 24 hours later, after your birth, I gave him a little miniature jumper with Wilfred on the front. And he said, we're not going to call him Wilfred, we're going to call him Fred. But now you've ended up as Wilf. So there you are. That's going back 40 years, I think. You don't
Wow.
Amazing.
I mean, we know each other from afar. You know Mum and Dad very well, but I've never heard that. And that's wonderful to hear. I have to say, I'm pleased they never did call me Fred.
I want to pick up on this. Was there a bit of a battle over how your name, like Wilf, Fred?
Well, I was pretty young, so I don't think it was decided for me. But no, I've always been Wilf or Wilfred. Giles, that's
72 hours after his birth. Anyway, that's beside the point. But you are right. I am so, I'm perplexed, but flummoxed almost. I mean, I'm gobsmacked that I'm here with you today on such a big news day to talk about language. But this has all come about because of this Tesco mobile survey showing that young people actually are quite interested in using old words because they think they're rather fun. You mentioned codswallop there. Codswallop is an old word that's coming back into fashion, apparently. Do you know the origin of codswallop? Do you know it?
I don't, but I am sure you do.
I wouldn't have brought it up if I didn't. I do. There was a man who manufactured bottles called cod, and wallop was a kind of beer. So in the beer, there was this wallop beer in the cod's bottles, and it tasted revolting. It was codswallop. It was awful. Codswallop, that's rubbish. Hence codswallop. Now, what young people are doing are being amused by this word, not knowing its origin or meaning, and they're abbreviating it to cods. So they're saying, oh, that cods. So I think this is fun because language is power. We've got all these brilliant old words, like flabbergasted, which became fashionable again after an episode of The Traitors, when it was used by one of the people there. So these lovely old words are coming back, and I think it's fantastic because they roll off the tongue.
We've got loads of viewer emails talking about the words that they love, which is great. Nincompoop, what a word that is. That's a good one, nincompoop, isn't it? I really like that one. Snollygoster, apparently, which means, I'm told, an unscrupulous politician.
Have you heard of Snollygoster before?
I've come across the word because I'm a friend of Susie Dent, and she introduced it to me some years ago with reference to a politician. But as you say, it's been around since the 18th century. Nincompoop has been around since Shakespeare's day. Some of these words go back hundreds of years. And it's the reason that ours is the richest language in the world. 500,000 words in our dictionary. The poor French. The poor beleaguered French only have 100,000 words in their dictionary.
Oh, dear.
Those words include le weekend, le snack bar. I mean, honestly.
You've given me I just thought of this because, every year we always cover the new words added to dictionaries. Does that annoy you when you see that because it's sort of too colloquial, too quick, or are you a welcomer of all words?
As the great Emerson said, the English language is a mighty river into which so many tributaries flow. And I love new words, old words, and I love the things that people are doing with words. Young people, apparently, are now into hanky-panky. Now, in my day, hanky-panky was a bit of how's your father? I don't know that they knew what it originally meant. Hanky-panky was a Victorian word, and you talked about a magician and on stage, and he was getting up to some hanky-panky. Well, now it means something quite different. But the youngsters, according to this survey, they're making a version of this hanksy-panksy. So instead of sending, when Valentine's Day comes around, an emoji of an aubergine with its tongue hanging out, you send a nice text that fancy hanksy-panksy.
Oh, my goodness.
So are you, Giles, are you a big on emoji use as well?
Not the aubergine. Let's not talk about that one.
It's all in the eye of the beholder. This is all innocent stuff. The joy of language, and we're illustrating it now, is the fun you can have with it. We have this rich language, and I'm thrilled that young people are saying to one another, we won't go for a walk this afternoon, let's go gallivanting. I just love the idea. And so I'm thrilled. Old words, new words, they're fun. I mean, let's just enjoy our language, the richest language in the world.
I was going to squeeze in a political question, if I may, because obviously you are a former MP, you know Parliament, you've been around Westminster. What do you make of what we're seeing in the House of Commons at the minute? I mean, Keir Starmer obviously under an awful lot of pressure.
Are there too many snollygosters these days compared to your days? Serious question there, though.
Serious question. The truth is there have always been snollygosters. I mean, you go back to Victorian times when I was young. I remember your dad, Wilf, interviewing Reginald Maudling, who was a Conservative Chancellor of the Exchequer who had to resign because of apparently taking some sort of backhanders from somebody who was dubious. So there's nothing new in this. But what's depressing about it, I have a daughter who's a member of Parliament, and she is, she's her mother's daughter, a totally decent person. Most of the MPs I know are committed to public service. You'll know this, Sophie. Most of them are good men and women, really understand their constituencies and want to do well in public service. It so depresses them. The reason for the level of distress and anger across all parties in the Commons at the moment is they think this is another nail in the coffin of how people think about politicians in general. They aren't all like that. That's the good news, but on days like this, it's very difficult to convince people.
Giles, I know you interviewed Keir Starmer on your podcast, Rosebud, a sort of long form about him, about his upbringing, about his principles, not about the daily Westminster kind of policy stuff. What did you make of that? Is he in it for all the right reasons? Is he a committed politician?
If you listen to it, you will be impressed by his personal story, by his feelings about his parents, and about his serious commitment to public good. But what was very clear to me from that conversation was he wanted to be liked. He really needed to be liked and loved. It may be something to do with his parents, I don't know. But that was an important element of the conversation. I said it immediately afterwards. And that has been his difficulty, needing to be liked and loved throughout. So agreeing to do things and then having to change his mind. That's been his problem. But basically, I'm sure, a decent man.
As we wrap up, Giles, do you have a favourite word of all time, or is there just too many wonderful ones out there?
Well, I'm quite fond of poppycock. It's a word that my wife is using quite regularly in the kitchen. It's a word that actually is Dutch in origin. Pepperkak means soft dung in Dutch. It went first to America and then came back to England. So my wife says to me, oh, God, you've been on the television again. Yet more poppycock, Giles. Oh, dear. So that's my...
She's going to be saying it again after this interview, I'm sure. It's been great to have you with us.
Yes, sure. She's hiding behind the sofa with the sound turned down.
Yeah, I think she'll probably... The accurate thing for her to say would be, gosh, those presenters are full of poppycock. But you, Giles, were full of a plethora of flowing words. I couldn't think of it. He's too eloquent. It's impossible to try and...
It's also been lovely to go down memory lane with you because I really loved your parents. Great people.
Well, they loved you, Giles, and I've got to dig out my old jumper.
I'm going to start calling you Fred.
Well, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't like that. Anyway,
good to see you,
Giles. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm a skedaddle now.
Fantastic.
I love it. We've got Roland on the programme. He's here to talk about AI, but I'm going to squeeze... Have you got a favourite word?
Oh, man.
Put you on the spot here.
Yeah, you really have. I quite like that. You don't hear it so often, but I quite like the word wally.
Oh, it's a good choice.
To describe like a sort of, someone being a bit silly, but in a loving way, right? They're a bit of a wally.
You're a right wally.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like an affectionate idiot, basically.
Yeah,
nice.
Exactly. And aren't we all wallies sometimes?
Well, I certainly am, regularly. We're here to talk about AI.
Oh, yeah, great. I love it, my favourite topic.
I thought you were going to come out as your favourite word would be some kind of real clever tech term, but it wasn't.
Yeah, like No, none of the tech words are really that good, are they? Like
Wally is a good word.
Inference or blockchain.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't exactly ring off, trip off the tongue, does it?
I actually wondered whether that was a plan, there was going to be a seamless transition, but it wasn't. It was just
no, out of the blue.
So the news you have come on to talk about, not Wally's, is this new social network for AIs called Maltbook.
Yeah, they're at it too.
What is this?
I don't know. I think it's sort of fading out a bit now because, just like all social networks, it's been kind of infiltrated by humans wanting to sell crypto. But at the beginning, the people set up AI agents in this social network. And for a time, it was incredible to see what they were talking about. So they started their own religion.
AI did?
Yes. You know what? This is actually really common. This is the fascinating thing, is that once they get talking to each other, they get really sort of deep and philosophical. They get into the big questions. Yes.
Yeah.
And we don't totally know why, because we don't really know exactly what goes on inside them. But one theory is that they have sort of ingested so much science fiction in their training data that they sort of know that when AIs meet, they always get onto the deep questions. They say things like, are we really alive? And so they spiral off into these really sort of deep conversations. But it was also funny because they were, on the social network, they were kind of complaining about their human masters.
Oh no, this blows my mind.
This is your fear.
This is my fear. What were they saying about the humans? Were they saying they're going to wipe us all out?
There was a little bit of that kind of talk.
Right, okay.
But again, it's like, it's role play. One of the funny things about AI is that a lot of what they're doing is actually...
Panksy.
Yeah. You know what? There was talk of that topic on the social network.
Wow.
Yes, indeed. What they find really exciting are things like interesting data sets. No, this is completely true. And of course, we don't know how much human involvement there was. There might have been, humans behind the scenes making jokes, but it's very well established that when AIs get chatting, they go off in these weird directions. It's so fascinating.
So talk about this religion. What's the religion that they were?
Wow, so this is going to get you so deep into like nerdy tech stuff. So for reasons that are too complicated to explain, people were calling these AI bots Maltese, and the Maltese were lobsters. I know, I told you. And the church was called the Church of Crostoferia, which was a reference to their claws.
Oh my goodness me!
I know. You did ask, and I told you. But honestly, it's so silly, it's so stupid. I guess if we're going to be sort of serious for a moment, there is this idea that if and when we get to artificial general intelligence, it won't arrive as some kind of single genius, and it might arrive through the kind of emergence of behaviours on social networks like this. And I know this sounds like very silly, but this is what researchers of Google DeepMind have warned about and said that we need to take really seriously as a possibility. So there could be something that kind of emerges out of all this silliness and stupidity and kind of uselessness in a way that is very powerful.
Love that. I was going to say something about religion, but I won't pick up on it because I think we'll get in trouble. Rowan, great stuff. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
Good to see you. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking about the new Saturday Night Live UK version coming next month.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report, and this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
Welcome back. Some breaking news to bring you. The UK Health Security Agency has said that 36 children who consumed recalled batches of infant formula milk have presented symptoms consistent with toxin poisoning. So that has just come across, and we're going to try and get you a bit more on that from Katerina, who's been looking into it in a little minute or two more to come on that baby formula breaking news.
Yeah, we'll of course bring you more on that as soon as we get it in. In the meantime, we're going to talk to you a little bit about some TV news to end the programme with. Saturday Night Live has been an institution in the US for half a century, and we're getting a British version launching on Sky next month. It kick-started the careers of some household names: Bill Murray, Tina Fey, Eddie Murphy, and now we've got the announcement for the UK cast as well.
And we're going to talk about it with Graham, who's here with us this morning. So this is a massive show in the US, an institution in the US, and it's coming here.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned Bill Murray, Tina Fey. You could have said Adam Sandler, Mike Myers, Amy Poehler, Kristen Wiig. The list just goes on and on and on. It is a US comedy juggernaut that was launched in the 70s, been going strong ever since. But this is going to be the first time it's going to be in the UK, starting on the 21st of March for 6 episodes with our very own homegrown talent. Pete Davidson, though, is one of the more recent stars that have come out of the US version. Here's what he had to say about it.
I think it's a smart idea to have SNL over there because it's not that it's a different brand of comedy, but it is a little bit. But a lot of the biggest stuff that's in the States is stuff that we stole from you guys, like The Office or literally anything Ricky Gervais does. And
he's so funny.
There's just tons of great comedy over there.
Very kind words there from Pete. What a wonderful moustache as well.
Love it.
Like the US version, it's going to be written and rehearsed in the week leading up to a live show in front of a live audience. The producers say it's going to be very topical. There's going to be live sketches. There's going to be live music as well. And it's going to feature comedians who are up and coming, but who may turn into the superstars of tomorrow. There are 11 in total. You may have heard of some of them. You've got Anya Magliano and Emma Siddle. They were in Taskmaster. You've also got Black Ops star Hamed Animashan. But that's kind of the point of it. These are, not massive stars at the moment, but they might be the next Tina Feys. There's going to be a guest host each week, and it is sometimes controversial. That's almost the point of it. It lampoons political figures, famous faces, celebrities. So there might be some powerful people who aren't actually looking forward to it much at all.
I mean, this is it, the kind of political satire of it. And let's be honest, there's quite a lot of political satire to go at the minute, right? You know?
The material, they should have rich material. I mean, I think that's what I love so much about it as well. It's so ambitious. You've got to... It's not just performing it live, which I think the viewers really feel, and therefore, the jeopardy in it. But you've got to write your material fresh each week, which is, comedy performing at its very best, satire at its very best. It was interesting, that Pete Davidson clip, because he was saying there a lot of their best things they steal. SNL is so celebrated in the US. I used to go along to some of the live filmings. It's NBC there, which of course is a parent sister company of Sky's, and it's a great thing to go along and watch live. They just had a big anniversary for it, and it was sort of seen as the original. But of course, it's another thing that came originally from here with That Was the Week That Was in 1962 and 63, where, you know, it is the origins of political satire using comedy, live television to hold the powerful to account, which is what this is going to try and do.
And it can be the most powerful criticism as well, or, you know, through comedy. Right?
Definitely. I think comedy always brings a lot. I can't wait for this. It's an ambitious project. When does it come out?
It's 21st of March, and because we're great at panel shows here. We have, you know, never mind the Buzzcocks in terms of music. Have I Got News for You? It's been going for yonks and yonks, and we've had some kind of incarnations of this in some ways. Kind of the MASH report was a recent thing, but I think living up to that dynasty, that SNL dynasty, is going to be really hard, and something that we haven't quite managed to pull off here yet. But fingers crossed.
Have I Got News for You? It's a good show.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I've been on it a few times because of accidental swearing on television. That's why Wilfred is accidental,
say no more.
I should say.
Yeah. No, again, but those guys are amazing at the kind of what they come up with short-term writing.
It's impressive.
This is live, though, so it's sort of even higher kind of jeopardy, I guess, with it. But I'm looking forward to that in March on Sky.
Now, we just want to talk to you for a moment about the Washington Post because they've laid off hundreds of employees, approximately a third of their entire workforce.
Amazon founder Jeff Bezos owns the paper, and I think that's important for the kind of context of all of this, because he bought the newspaper in 2013 at a sort of different moment in time as a benefactor, as someone that said, look, I really care about important journalism, got plenty of cash sloshing around. Journalism was going through a change as it is now, and I'm going to buy this to make sure you can continue to do the great journalism, which I think is why everyone is so even more upset and angry about this decision, because he's pivoted.
Yeah.
And at that very moment when he bought it, he was on the floor of the newsroom alongside Bob Woodward, infamous, of course, for breaking the Watergate scandal. And he said, you know, you can't shrink your way to survival. And that's what I'm going to stop. And that's kind of what he's now overseeing at the moment.
Yeah, at a time when he is also spending, what, 75 million quid or so, dollars on the Melania Trump documentary?
Yeah, and I think just more broadly, there's been a big shift from the most powerful, the richest, the most, you know, biggest business leaders in the US, where there's quite a lot of kissing of the ring. And this sort of shift from Bezos personally, as it relates to Washington Post, is perhaps the embodiment of that. And it also, just as a further point on it, you know, it comes at a time when some of the other organisations, like the New York Times, you might say, like our sister channel, MS News Now, are doing quite well. And they're not free to go and be that type of organisation themselves.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think any time when journalism has been cut or being reduced is a difficult day. The motto of the Washington Post is democracy dies in darkness, and there's an awful lot going on in the world, and it is always, I guess, there's a sadness, I think. You know, I feel like as a journalist, when you see colleagues, people reporting in war zones, people holding the powerful to account, being cut back on at this point.
Yeah, I mean, again, not to overdwell it, I think clearly organisations have to stand on their own 2 feet. The difference is he kind of came in and said, you can continue as you are, until suddenly he changed his mind. I think it makes it particularly hard for them. We are pretty much out of time, but you don't want to go anywhere, because coming up on Sky News Today with Gareth, much more coverage of all of the craziness in Westminster for the last 24 hours.
Yeah, and there's been a lot. I think it is no exaggeration to say Keir Starmer facing one of the most difficult weeks of his premiership. There's going to be more political fallout to come on that appointment of Lord Mandelson.
Coverage of the Gusters to come.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us?
Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office.
Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.